Warrior Lore. Chapter 4069. Seeing that the situation was becoming more and more strange, exceeding his understanding, Xiao Hua had the intention to fly out from these outlines. However, Sun Cheng and Sun Hao, who were following closely behind Xiao Hua, were already steadily chasing after him. Xiao Hua was simply unable to escape. Of course, noticing that the two were not in a hurry, Xiao Hua was even more nervous, knowing that he might be flying into a dead end. Therefore, after being unable to escape from this strange place, he tried to fly towards the outline of the nearest mountain range. What made Xiao Hua tremble with fear was that his divine sense had yet to come into contact with the outline of the mountain range. A kind of feeling of shock, majesty, fear, and so on came from his divine sense, forcing Xiao Hua to withdraw his divine sense. With his divine sense already like this, how could Xiao Hua still dare to approach? He could only fly forward. Of course, as he flew forward, Xiao Hua also tried to fly to higher and lower places. However, no matter how he tried, the mountain range seemed to be eternally standing there. It was incomparably majestic, incomparably shocking, and forever something that Xiao Hua could never hope to reach. I'm afraid. I can only go forward. Xiao Hua's eyes turned rapidly, fiercely gritting his teeth, thinking to himself, if it really doesn't work, I'll just drag the two of them into this dangerous place together. Who knows, I might be able to rely on luck to escape this calamity. Humph, even if there's no luck, then it's better to die together. Just as he thought of this, the sound of armored horses came from afar. At the same time, a familiar voice rang in Xiao Hua's ears. Who's there? Quickly stop. This is Black Ruins Mountain, the forbidden area of the Immortal Palace. Ordinary people cannot approach. Otherwise, kill without mercy. Sun Jian? Perfected Lord Qingyuan? Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. Damn, I really came to the Immortal Palace? Seeing an acquaintance, Xiao Hua's eyes turned, hurriedly shouting, Perfected Lord Qing, I am Xiao Hua of Black Wind Mountain. I have great information about the 9 provinces of the hidden Immortal Continent. I ask Perfected Lord to report it to the Immortal Emperor. Humph. Sun Jian naturally recognized Xiao Hua. Standing on the flaming chariot, he shouted, Xiao Hua, this is not the Immortal Palace. If you want to see the Immortal Emperor, you'd better turn back. If you continue, don't blame this true monarch for being merciless and killing you here. Boom. Sun Jian waved the 3-pointed, double-edged blade in his hand. The thousands of immortal soldiers and immortal generals behind him all circulated their true energy, and the inescapable net appeared in front of Xiao Hua's head again. Damn it! Seeing Sun Jian like this, Xiao Hua cursed in his heart. This is what it means to have a wolf in front and a tiger behind. Where should I run to? As they spoke, Sun Hao and Sun Cheng's clear gazes swept over, landing on Xiao Hua and Sun Jian's bodies before withdrawing. Even the speed of their pursuit slowed down. Xiao Hua looked at Sun Jian, the immortal soldiers and immortal generals behind Sun Jian, and even the inescapable net in front of him. He then said, Perfected Cultivator Qing, the battle between you and me in the Black Wind Ridge didn't end. Even though we didn't really fight, this Xiao respects you as a true man. Even if you cut off all ties with this Xiao Hua will still regard you as an old friend. So this Xiao Hua will tell you frankly, you and the immortal soldiers and immortal generals behind you are simply not this Xiao Hua's match. If you don't want to die under this Xiao Hua's hands, and if you don't want your subordinates to die under this Xiao Hua's hands, then get out of the way immediately. Now that Xiao Hua has been forced into such a situation by your Confucian cultivator, this Xiao Hua has no more scruples. If this true monarch doesn't get out of the way, you'll kill this true monarch? Sun Jian's expression didn't change as he asked indifferently. Xiao Hua nodded. That's right. This Xiao Hua is being chased by 2 Confucian martial grandmasters behind me with no way out. I can only rush into this Immortal Palace's forbidden area to escape. If you don't get out of the way, then this Xiao Hua can only attack. Sun Jian raised his eyes to look at Sun Hao and Sun Cheng, who were slowly approaching. Then his gaze fell on Xiao Hua again. He asked, Do you know why those 2 martial grandmasters aren't in a hurry to kill you? Naturally, it's because of this forbidden area. Xiao Hua answered somewhat impatiently. But do you know where this forbidden area is? Sun Jian asked again. Xiaohua sneered. Didn't you say this place is Black Ruins Mountain? Correct. This place is Black Ruins Mountain. Sun Jian nodded. But this place has another name. It's called Heaven's Prison. Heaven? Heaven's Prison? Xiaohua was dumbstruck. You came to guard the Heaven's Prison? This Heaven's Prison is the Immortal Palace's prison? The Immortal Palace's prison isn't here. Sun Jian explained. This place is the Heaven's Prison. Any cultivator who enters the Heaven's Prison, no matter how high their cultivation is, can never come out alive. Immortal Emperor? Great Sage? Mahavairakana revered one? Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air and said in shock, they also can't come out alive. Any cultivator. Sun Jian answered word by word. This Xiaohua understands. Xiaohua finally understood why Sun Hao and Sun Cheng weren't in a hurry to kill him. You're guarding this place to prevent cultivators from entering by mistake. Of course. Sun Jian nodded, then looked at the approaching Sun Cheng and Sun Hao and said indifferently, since you know this is the Heaven's Prison, then turn back. This true Lord's duty is here. I can't let you pass. Damn it. I already know this is the Heaven's Prison. How can this Xiaohua still go in? Xiaohua was speechless, but he still felt lucky in his heart and asked in a low voice, then, what's the Heaven's Prison like? No one knows. Sun Jian shook his head. No one has ever come out from there, so no one knows what's inside. Has anyone ever gone in? Sun Jian looked at Xiaohua, knowing that he had not given up, and said indifferently, billions of years ago, there seemed to be a one Xing who rebelled against the Immortal Palace. The Immortal Palace laid down an inescapable net but couldn't kill him. Later, he was forced into the Heaven's Prison and disappeared. All right. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, you don't need to say any more. After saying that, Xiaohua turned around, his eyes flashing with determination as he looked at the two Confucian cultivators approaching. Sun Jian controlled the flaming war chariot and retreated a few li, coldly looking at everything that happened in front of him. The inescapable net in front of him had not been removed. Sun Cheng and Sun Hao flew to the front, and each of them pointed their feet. The burning sky furnace and the earth-casting furnace flew up into the air, and the earth-casting furnace landed on the ground, spinning around, waiting for an opportunity to pounce on Xiaohua. You too. Xiaohua looked at the two imperial equipment aggressively, took out a Chinquin bag and held it in his hand and said, this is what you want. This Xiaohua will give it to you. However, after you take it, can you let this Xiaohua live? Sun Cheng smiled and clapped his hands. People often say that a wise man submits to circumstances. Taoist Xiao is indeed a wise man. If you had done this earlier, why did you have to tear apart everyone's face? This Xiaohua thinks that he is the kind of person who will not turn back until he hits the south wall, and can't be considered a wise man. Xiaohua shook his head slightly, but now, this Xiaohua has no way out, and can only choose to compromise. As long as the two of you swear an oath, this Xiaohua will immediately send this Chinquin bag over. Sun Cheng looked at Sun Hao, and the two of them exchanged glances. Sun Cheng said somewhat regretfully, Taoist Xiao, if it was before Liao Jiang, or before your tribulation, not to mention swearing an oath, even if we directly let you go, it would not be impossible. But now, do you think that we still have the qualifications to let you go? But we must ask Taoist Xiao to make a trip with us to know the result. Sun Hao also said, but this old man feels that Taoist Xiao need not worry. If you use this item to atone for your crimes, you may still have a way out. Sigh. Xiaohua sighed, kept the Chinquin bag and said, if the two of you let this Xiaohua go now, this Xiaohua can naturally give that item to you without worry. But if you want this Xiaohua to be captured without putting up a fight and wait to be dealt with, that won't do. If the two of you push too far, this Xiaohua will rush into Black Ruins Mountain and let you draw water with a bamboo basket. Ha. Sun Cheng laughed loudly, pointing at the inescapable net and said, Taoist Xiao, what do you think Taoist Master Qingyun is doing here? Without his Immortal Palace imperial equipment, can you enter the heavenly prison? Besides, Taoist Xiao, Sun Hao also advised, once you enter the heavenly prison, you will definitely die. But if you follow this old man and the others back, you may not necessarily die. Why do you have to make things difficult for yourself? Xiao Hua pinched his chin, thinking to himself. He understood in his heart that if it was purely because of the 9 provinces' cauldrons, he really didn't need to be too afraid. But the problem was that the Immortal Palace didn't only have a grudge with the 9 provinces' cauldrons. There were also those 100 nascent soul cultivators, and also Yaodai Mountain. He had a lot of secrets on him, and he couldn't reveal any of them. So how could he just let himself be captured without putting up a fight? Forget it. Xiao Hua looked at the 2 Imperial equipment approaching and made a decision in his heart. Just as Xiao Hua was about to take out White Bone from the space, the heaven-burning furnace and the earth-casting furnace suddenly moved. Hundreds of vast chi pillars shot out from the void, landing on the 2 Imperial equipment. The 2 Imperial equipment expanded to several miles in size in a few breaths, firmly locking Xiao Hua inside. Haha, Xiao Hua laughed. So the 2 of you didn't plan to let this Xiao go. This Xiao has always been asking a tiger for its skin. When the 2 Imperial equipment moved, Sun Chang and Sun Hao naturally moved as well. The 2 of them urged their bodies to move and still released the 3-colored genuine qi. Under the burning heaven-casting earth technique, the area around Xiao Hua within 100 miles was enveloped in silver-white and light blue flames. Layers of righteous qi surged into the flames like waves. The surface of Xiao Hua's body was naturally burned by the flames, but at this time, although the flames were fierce, they couldn't melt Xiao Hua's body. Only some of the flames landed on his body, creating deep fire scars, but these fire scars quickly healed under the bronze brilliance. However, the power of the domain within the flames was heavily pressed on Xiao Hua's body by the giant peak, and all of his true qi and true qi couldn't be mobilized. However, when the 2 Confucian cultivators saw Xiao Hua's calm expression, they didn't dare to be negligent. Each of their subbodies appeared, and the subbodies waved their arms, urging the 2 Imperial equipment to gradually close. -13. Chapter 4070. Come out. Xiao Hua finally decided. His mind entered the space and took out the 3-headed, 6-armed white bone. Seeing the white bone appear on top of Xiao Hua's head, the 2 Confucian cultivators were slightly startled. However, although the white bone's body flashed with traces of lightning, the lightning didn't change in the flames. Even the white bone itself didn't change at all. It was just like a soldier puppet, without any vitality. Quick, make your move. Sun Hao frowned and urged Sun Cheng. We will quickly capture this guy. Don't let him cause any more trouble. This white bone looks really strange. Okay. Sun Cheng also nodded. The 2 of them flew out and landed on the 2 sides of the 2 Imperial equipment. They each stretched out their hands, one down and the other up. Rumble, rumble, rumble sounds could be heard in the air, and the closing speed increased. Bone-tempering fellow Taoist. At this moment, Xiao Hua was calm and said in a low voice, I'm afraid only you can activate this strange white bone. Okay. Bone-tempering Xiao Hua's voice was very loud. The indomitable and desolate figure walked out of Xiao Hua's body and landed on the white bone. Woo-woo. An indescribable aura came out from the white bone. This aura actually blew the flames in the space away. Not good. This white bone is really strange. Sun Cheng was alarmed. His body emitted a 3-colored brilliance. The burning heaven cauldron vibrated and accelerated its descent. Sigh. Xiao Hua sighed and took out the blood bone from his Naiwan palace. His calm mind was a bit confused. He really didn't want to go to this step. However, seeing that his body was a bit bent under the pressure of the 2 Imperial equipment, he clenched his teeth and placed the blood bone on top of the white bone. Swoosh. The moment the blood bone landed on the white bone, the entire space seemed to be silent. Immediately after, the white bone issued a kacha sound of vibration. Strands of lightning were born from the cracks of the white bone. After that, a desolate aura that was 10 times more powerful than the bone-tempering Xiao Hua emitted from the white bone. Like a flood, it instantly covered an area of several thousand miles. Immediately after, roar. An angry roar that was even louder than Dragon Vein Xiao Hua's roar came out from White Bone's 3 heads. It was as if it wanted to release the aura that it had held back for thousands of years tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. This furious roar was so shocking. Not only did it shake Xiao Hua to the point of trembling, even the immortal soldiers and immortal generals guarding Black Ruins Mountain fell limp in midair. Quick! Retreat! Sun Jian's flaming chariot was now out of flames, and his face was also filled with shock as he hurriedly gave the order. Not only that, just as the furious roar fell, the blood bone on top of White Bone's head suddenly emitted a faint blood light. This blood light was like the soul-slaying Yuan light. It streaked across the sky and landed on top of Xiao Hua's head. Wang Wang. Xiao Hua's body trembled, and a blood shadow flew out along with the blood light and landed on White Bone's. White Bone's body instantly emitted a blood light, and a faint blood membrane covered White Bones. This blood membrane swelled for a moment before it stopped growing and turned into a layer of skin. A skinny three-headed six-armed celestial that was several hundred feet tall appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Looking at Xiao Hua again, once the blood shadow appeared, his entire body went limp in midair. Not only was his face deathly pale, his body also did not have a trace of strength. Other than being conscious, he could not even move a finger. That blood bone had already sucked out all of Xiao Hua's blood essence. Boom! Once the celestial took shape, the void within several li immediately collapsed, and the previously incomparably powerful silver and blue flames were immediately extinguished. One of the celestial's heads looked up, while the other head looked down again. Two of the celestial's arms slightly drew a line in the air. Crack! Crack! Two crisp sounds rang out. No one could see how the celestial did it, but the heaven-burning furnace and the earth-casting furnace immediately exploded from the inside out, and the imprisonment within 50 kilometers was swept away. Just as the imprisonment disappeared, ka-cha-cha, within 1,000 li, violent thunder once again set off. Countless lightning bolts, some in the shape of a ball, crazily fell down. The celestial's body could be seen with the naked eye. Boom! At the same time, a familiar foreign star power fell down from the lightning bolts, and a barbaric aura rushed out from within 1,000 li. Hee-hee! An indescribable sound came out from the celestial's mouth, and a strange aura that could destroy heaven and earth was once again emitted from the celestial's body. Wherever this aura passed, all the space collapsed one after another, and nothing was spared. The inescapable net set up by Sun Jian and the other immortal soldiers and immortal generals was torn to pieces by this aura. Even the outline of the mountain range that Xiao Hua's divine sense did not dare to approach before was now extremely distorted and flowing. Not to mention Sun Jian, even Sun Hao and Sun Cheng were dumbstruck. They turned around and fled, because how could they resist this aura that was even more powerful than Wenxing's? Ka-cha-cha! Just as the space within several hundred li was collapsing, an incomparably majestic fluctuation fell down along with a thunderbolt. Wherever the fluctuation went, all the space recovered extremely quickly. The thunderbolt fell, smashing precisely on the celestial's blood bone, and the aura that could not be contained by this world was immediately extinguished by more than half. This is the laws of heaven and earth? Although Xiao Hua could not move, and could only watch as he released a crazy demon that could destroy heaven and earth, when the fluctuation and thunderbolt fell, he could clearly feel the heavenly Tao aura inside. He also understood that this celestial was definitely not an existence of the 3 continents, and was also not an existence of the 10,000 demon realm. The aura formed by a celestial was also not something that this world could contain. So the laws of heaven and earth descended to seal and eliminate the celestial's aura. However, even if the celestial was sealed, his strength was enough. The celestial slightly opened his mouth, and his entire body suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he had fallen on top of Sun Cheng's head. Seeing this, Sun Cheng was really frightened. He urged his sub-body, and the Imperial Star Pierce was also shot out. Crack! A stream of light splashed from the celestial's body. The Imperial Star Pierce did not hurt the celestial at all, and the celestial raised his hand and grabbed downwards. The entire space of a few miles was imprisoned, and then with a poof sound, Sun Cheng's sub-body broke apart. exploding into three-colored true chi that rushed in all directions. Woo! The celestial opened his mouth and inhaled, and all the true chi fell into his stomach. At the same time, the celestial's other hand reached into the void. Poof! The multicolored light around Sun Cheng swayed, and the bony arm passed through his body. Sun Cheng opened his mouth to call for help, but the celestial's other head opened its mouth and spat out a green light that fell on his forehead. A faint shadow was pulled out by the green light and fell into the celestial's stomach. Not only that, the celestial's third head opened its mouth again, and a blood shadow flew out of Sun Cheng's body. It was also swallowed by the celestial, and Sun Cheng's body quickly withered and turned into dust. Huh! The celestial killed Sun Cheng, opened its skeleton mouth, and looked at Sun Hao. At this moment, in the distant space, layers of light and shadow flashed, and a human figure appeared in the distorted space. As soon as this human figure appeared, it immediately turned into a subbody that was hundreds of feet tall. This subbody was not solid, or a shadow, and was very ethereal. Wensheng? Xiaohua floated in the air involuntarily. When he saw the Void Refinement Realm subbody, he immediately said in a low voice, "The Celestial actually alarmed the Wensheng? You. Who are you?" The Wensheng looked at the Celestial in surprise, and then his gaze fell on Sun Hao, who was escaping in a sorry state. He asked, "Where is Xiaohua?" Sun Hao was shocked, and he forced himself to calm down. He raised his hand and said, "Senior, Xiaohua is behind this monster. We accompanied Xiaohua to train, and suddenly we met this almost invincible monster. Xiaohua was injured by this monster, and I'm afraid he will die soon." Damn it. Xiaohua understood and was secretly anxious. This is a real Confucian cultivator. He came to save me. Unfortunately, Xiaohua could not speak at all, and the Xiaohua inside the Celestial seemed to have lost his mind, and he would not explain. The Wensheng raised his head, squinted his eyes at the Celestial, and asked curiously, "Where did you meet this monster? This thing does not seem to be from the hidden immortal continent." Just as the Wensheng said this, the Celestial moved again. The Celestial's target was naturally Sun Hao. Let's see how the Wensheng would let the Celestial succeed. The Wensheng smiled slightly, and his subbody moved. He raised his arm, and a four-colored light flashed, falling towards the Celestial's white bones. Boom! The four-colored light was defeated, and the Celestial's white bone hand was also blocked. Oh! The Wensheng was stunned, and looked at the Celestial in disbelief. Then, his body swayed, and his huge subbody suddenly turned into multicolored light, like a peacock spreading its tail, covering hundreds of miles around. However, this multicolored light only spread slightly, and then suddenly converged, condensing into a four-colored fist, and hit one of the Celestial's heads. Boom! In a huge explosion, the fist flipped the Celestial's body. Roar! The Celestial's body did not stand upright, and with a roar, he swung his two arms forward. Ka-cha-cha! Two lightning bolts comparable to tribulation lightning, and more powerful than the horn dragon, hit the Wensheng subbody. Woo! The Wensheng subbody quickly teleported, wanting to merge with the void, but the nearby space was once again imprisoned by the lightning. In an even louder explosion, not only was the Wensheng subbody sent flying, but the surrounding space was also shattered into pieces. Granny, this is troublesome. The flood rushed to the Dragon King Temple. Xiaohua was somewhat anxious and called for the Xiaohua in his heart. However, before he could get in touch with bone-honing Xiaohua, a sudden change occurred. The second body of the unknown literary sage that came to save Xiaohua had just landed, and before he could even straighten up, Sun Hao, who was not far from him, suddenly flashed and appeared beside him faster than lightning. Sun Hao strangely stretched out his hand, and his arm suddenly lengthened. With a boom, it pierced into the literary sage's second body. -13. Chapter 4071. When Shang let out a blood-curdling scream, the originally illusory subbody suddenly solidified, trembling uncontrollably under Sun Hao's sneak attack. When Shang turned his head with great difficulty, looking at Sun Hao with extreme confusion. However, A cold smile appeared on Sun Hao's face. A layer of inscriptions appeared on his arm. As the inscriptions entered his body, Wenshang's sub-body gradually shrank, and in the end, Sun Hao opened his mouth. Woo! A four-colored blood shadow fell into his mouth, and Wenshang's physical body along with his sub-body completely disappeared. Sun Hao killed a Wenshang faster than a Devis killed a martial grandmaster. Wang Wang. Sun Hao's body expanded uncontrollably as the inscriptions poured in. The sub-body that appeared above his head previously also expanded and disappeared into it. After Sun Hao's body flickered a few times, suddenly, like Wenshang before, it became illusory, becoming one with the surrounding space. Boom! A loud sound rang out. Immediately after, a powerful Wenchu star energy came from the void and landed on Sun Hao's body. A dazzling star-like battle armor formed with the naked eye. Seeing everything that happened so suddenly, Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. His heart once again fell into an ice cave. This is a Wenxing? How can Sun Hao be a Wenxing? Why did he attack that Wenshang? Boom! Without waiting for Xiao Hua to think, Sun Hao's figure flashed and appeared in front of the Devis. Sun Hao didn't take out any imperial equipment, directly smashing a fist towards the Devis' head. Woo! The Devis naturally wouldn't show weakness, swinging his fist to meet the attack. The two fists collided, letting out a rumbling sound. Immediately after, as the two waved their hands and raised their legs, lightning surged, as if thousands of lightning bolts were wreaking havoc in the entire space. The might of this lightning was so powerful that the entire Black Ruins mountain was shaking. Sun Hao was from a military background. It looked like his fists and legs were very powerful, and the Devis skills were also extraordinary. Big Dipper Divine Fist and Ethereal Steps were methodical, not losing out. This isn't Sun Hao. This definitely isn't Sun Hao. Xiao Hua's figure was pushed towards Black Ruins Mountain by the lightning from the punches and kicks. He gradually approached Sun Jian, but Xiao Hua didn't care about any of this. He only stared at the battle between the diva and Sun Hao. After watching for a while, he finally understood. This Sun Hao should be his so-called master's clone. Xiao Hua, what's going on? Sun Jian's voice came from behind Xiao Hua's back. Xiao Hua couldn't turn his head and said, don't mention these two. Say something. Sun Jian urged, just now, that Confucian martial grandmaster actually killed a literary sage. Where did he come from? Damn it. It's not that I don't want to talk. Xiao Hua shouted. I already said it. You can't hear me. Sun Hao, Sun's eyes. Xiao Hua, Wan, Shang, Xiao Hua's. Wins? Xiao Hua looked at true monarch Qingyuan, who was loyal to the immortal emperor, and said with a bitter smile, Sun Jian, if you didn't come, you might still be alive, but since you helped me up, I'm afraid you'll be killed by Sun Hao like that sage of literature. Sun Hao? Sun Jian looked over, seeming to understand something. The one who died just now was called Sun Cheng, and the one I killed was called Wu Han. Xiao Hua explained. They took a fancy to something I had and wanted to take it away. That's why they chased me all the way from Liao River to Black Ruins Mountain. That sage of literature just now was a true Confucian cultivator. He was invited here by me using the True Confucian's token. True Confucian? You have the True Confucian's token? Sun Hao looked at Xiao Hua in surprise, obviously not believing him. Xiao Hua nodded and didn't explain further. At this moment, Sun Hao's figure was struck by lightning by the Devis. A small part of his body was damaged, and waves of starlight gushed out. Ka! The sound of a sword rang out, followed by the cries of phoenixes and the roars of dragons. A long sword appeared in Sun Hao's hand. The hilt of this sword was shaped like a heart, and the heart was engraved with the patterns of dragons, phoenixes, and other beasts. Also, the edge of the sword under the sword light didn't look sharp, as if it hadn't been sharpened. There were no spikes at the tip of the sword, only an oval shape. The cries of phoenixes and the roars of dragons came from the patterns of the 10,000 beasts. The sword light of the treasured sword was different from ordinary sword light. It didn't have the coldness of killing, but instead had a heart-penetrating warmth. The silver sword light contained 10,000 layers of sword intent. The inner layer of this sword intent was the mountains and rivers. The middle layer was the myriad phenomena of the world, and the outer layer was the pavilions of the sky and the chains of inscriptions. Although the Devis' desolate aura was heavy, it instantly collapsed under this warm sword and tint. Tian, son of heaven's sword? Xiaohua was dumbfounded again. This was really fate. In the blood pool of the gods and devils, the son of heaven's sword suppressed the blood bone, and here, the Devis encountered the son of heaven's sword again. Could the Devis defeat the son of heaven's sword this time? No. Unexpectedly, Sun Jian exposed the truth. This isn't the real son of heaven's sword. This is only the outer layer of the son of heaven's sword. However, the son of heaven's sword was the son of heaven's sword. It was only the outer layer, and similarly, the Devis sealed by the laws of heaven and earth couldn't compare to it. When the son of heaven's sword landed on the Devis flesh and blood rapidly withered, and the aura that could tear the void was also swept away. Roar! Bone-honed Xiao Hua roared in pain, and landed in front of Xiao Hua with the Devis that were only bones left. Quickly take out that piece of blood bone, Xiao Hua shouted. Sun Jian reached out and took out the blood bone. Xiao Hua's mind swept, sending the lifeless white bone into the space, and the bone-honed Xiao Hua fell into Xiao Hua's body. Sun Jian. Sun Hao held the son of heaven's sword and said coldly, "Bring Xiao Hua here, then swear that you won't speak of today's matter. This old man can spare your life." Hee. Sun Jian laughed coldly. He grabbed Xiao Hua with one hand and placed the blood bone into his bosom with the other. He said, "You spared my life, but can you also spare the lives of the Black Ruins mountain garrison?" No. Sun Hao shook his head. "Anyone who saw today's matter must die." Haha, is it because they saw you holding the son of heaven's sword? Sun Jian laughed loudly. Who are you? You actually dare to hold the son of heaven's sword that only the immortal emperor can possess? Could it be you still want to report this matter to the immortal emperor? Sun Hao asked with interest. Sun Jian laughed coldly. Everyone has the right to punish the unfilial son of heaven and earth. Do you think that by sparing my life, I won't report it to the immortal emperor? Foolish loyalty. Sun Hao sighed. This old man really doesn't know what benefits the immortal emperor gave you to actually treat him like this. I am a true lord of the immortal palace and a military disciple. Naturally, I have to be loyal to the immortal emperor. Sun Jian said word by word. I don't need any benefits. Since that's the case, then you can die. Be loyal to that dog's-hit immortal emperor of yours. Sun Hao waved the son of heaven's sword calmly, and the sword's light enveloped an area of several thousand li. At that moment, there was a loud hum. The thing Sun Jian had been hiding beneath him all this time moved. A beam of light shot behind him, and the void-shattering eye between his brows opened. The grayish-white beam of light followed the previous one and landed on the distant, empty black ruin. The Kunlun mirror? Sun Hao was shocked. Didn't the immortal emperor take it back already? As he spoke, Sun Hao hastily raised his hand, and a sealing force instantly controlled the area within 1,000 li. However, Sun Hao was still too late. The Kunlun mirror and void-shattering eyes beam of light landed on empty black ruin emitted a strange sound, and a thumb-sized crack appeared in the mountain's outline. Then, a black wind rushed out from within, following the beam of light and enveloping Xiao Hua and Sun Jian. Wherever the black wind passed, forget Sun Hao's sealing force, even the son of heaven's sword's light was broken. Many of the immortal soldiers and immortal generals stationed around empty black ruin were swept in by the black wind. Damn it! Sun Hao cursed, and the son of heaven's sword in his hand hastily slashed down. Boom! The sword's light landed, and a huge spatial crack appeared. However, in front of the crack, the black wind still fell into empty black ruin. Xiao Hua, Sun Jian, and hundreds of immortal soldiers and generals fell into empty black ruin. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Sun Hao cursed loudly, and the son of heaven's sword in his hand slashed down again. Miserable screams rang out. Puff, puff. Sounds of flesh and blood bursting rang out. In just a few breaths, Sun Hao had killed all of true monarch Qingyuan's immortal soldiers and generals. In the end, Sun Hao's eyes flashed with the eye-clearing art. He swept his left and right, then rubbed his hands together. Heavenly fire descended, enveloping everything within 1,000 li. All of the corpses, including Sun Cheng and that literary sage, were burned to ashes. Only then did he disappear into the void with a dark expression. Although Xiaohua couldn't see Sun Hao's actions, when Sun Jian approached him, he already knew the fate of Sun Jian and the troops stationed at empty Black Ruin. Sun Hao, who had taken out the Son of Heaven's sword, couldn't possibly let anyone know he possessed it, even if it was just the outer shell of the Son of Heaven's sword. However, what he didn't expect was that Sun Jian, who had severed all ties with him, would actually save him. Of course, the instant the black wind rose and swept him in, Xiaohua also understood in his heart. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Sun Jian was an upright person. Since he had severed all ties with him, then he had severed all ties with him. This Sun Hao had the outer shell of the Son of Heaven's sword in his hand. It was very obvious that among the Confucian cultivators, he was a power that could stand up to the immortal emperor. If he fell into Sun Hao's hands, not to mention the 9 cauldrons that he had never revealed to Sun Jian, even the bones of the celestial being were a great threat to the immortal emperor. Sun Jian wasn't actually saving him, but preventing him from falling into Sun Hao's hands. He didn't want to cause trouble for the immortal emperor and the immortal palace. Damn it! The blood bone of the celestial being is still in this bastard's possession. Xiaohua was speechless at this loyal Sun Jian. This bastard couldn't have left the blood bone in empty Black Ruin, right? Although Xiaohua thought so, he only had a body of divine abilities. Besides his mind, he couldn't even move anything else. He could only allow Sun Jian to drag him into the spatial crack created by the black wind. -13. Chapter 4072. The space crack is pitch black and devoid of light. There's not even a trace of sound. It's as silent as a tomb. With Xiaohua's strength, he can barely see the situation around him. At this moment, Sun Jian seems to be in the same situation as Xiaohua. His body is powerlessly floating in the darkness. His hands and feet are blown away by the black wind. However, his left hand is still firmly holding onto Xiaohua. Strange. Xiaohua is somewhat bewildered. This heavenly prison doesn't seem to be as powerful as Sun Jian said. The ignorant were naturally fearless. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and looked around, while Sun Jian and the immortal soldiers and immortal generals who were dragged into the heavenly prison all revealed a look of horror. They exerted all their strength to circulate their true energy to protect themselves. Sun Jian. Xiaohua opens his mouth. However, his voice is extremely long. It's so long that even Xiaohua himself can't hear it clearly. Sun Jian seems to have heard Xiaohua's voice. He slightly turns his head. There's an inquiring look in his eyes. He opens his mouth and also drags out the syllables. What do you want? Xiaohua is helpless. His eyes inexplicably turn, and he agrees. Sun Jian doesn't know what Xiaohua means. However, he nods at Xiaohua and clenches his left hand again. His eyes are telling Xiaohua to be at ease. All right. Xiaohua secretly nods in his heart. Although this Sun Jian is an immortal emperor's loyal follower, he's also a trustworthy person. In this heavenly prison, having such a person to support each other can be considered a kind of luck. Although the black wind is powerful, it's impossible to determine the distance in the heavenly prison. Therefore, for an entire incense stick's worth of time, the two of them don't stop moving. However, the two of them don't realize how far they've been blown by the black wind. The floating immortal soldiers and immortal generals around the two of them also maintain their previous posture. There's no change. Could it be that we're just floating like this? Xiaohua suddenly has a kind of enlightenment. A trace of fear appears in his heart. This heavenly prison is endless. As long as a cultivator falls into this heavenly prison, they'll just float until the end of their lifespan? Isn't that so? This heavenly prison doesn't have the world's origin energy. There's no righteous energy. Cultivators who come here can't cultivate at all. Sun Jian and the other immortal soldiers and immortal generals were no different from me. They couldn't even move their bodies. What were they cultivating? I can only slowly grow old here and die, thinking of quietly waiting until I die of old age, An indescribable fear arises in Xiao Hua's heart. This is the terror of the heavenly prison. Xiao Hua floated peacefully for more than 10 days. If it wasn't for the howling of the black wind, Xiao Hua felt as if he hadn't moved at all. Even his blood essence that had been absorbed by the celestials didn't recover in the slightest. What's more, the surroundings were always pitch black, and it was impossible to distinguish any changes. Xiao Hua and Sun Jian could only express their intentions through the movement of their eyes. Sigh. For no reason, Xiao Hua sighed in his heart. At this point, he already understood that the sky prison of Black Ruins Mountain was a warning sign of his sudden impulse. It was a huge crisis that could not be avoided, regardless of whether one was training or cultivating in seclusion. The root of this crisis was the 9 continents cauldrons. If he was training, he couldn't avoid looking for the Yuzhou cauldrons. Sun Cheng was guarding the Yuzhou cauldrons, waiting for him to come. He would definitely walk right into the trap. And if he didn't come out of seclusion, Sun Hao would also follow Sun Cheng's clues to find him. With Wenxing's strength, with the power to control the Son of Heaven's sword, with the ambition to confront an immortal emperor, Sun Hao would definitely find him. He might even find the Fortune Gate in the Soaring Dragon Mountain range. At that time, the one who would lose would not be Xiao Hua himself, but the entire Dao Gate. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua's heart calmed down. After all, he had left enough things in the Soaring Dragon Mountain range, and the disciples there were enough. In the future, the Fortune Gate would definitely stand out and occupy a place in the hidden immortal continent. It's just a pity that the disciples in this Zhao's space. Xiao Hua felt a little regretful. I shouldn't have brought them out. Although Xiao Hua's mind could move, ever since he entered the heavenly prison, Xiao Hua found that his mind could not enter the space, so he couldn't see the situation in the space. But suddenly, Xiao Hua's heart was moved. This Xiao has drifted in the heavenly prison for a lifetime, but the space is independent. Fujiwen and the others can also live a wonderful life. Moreover, the Fortune Gate controlled by green-robed Xiao Hua also has its own life. Although I don't know what the space will be like after I die, I know that as long as I'm alive, the space will exist, and everything inside will be wonderful. Damn it. So what if the heavenly prison? So what if I drift quietly like this for a lifetime? For these disciples, for Xue Xue and Master in the dark side of the space, I also have to live. For every day I live, they can live. After thinking this through, Xiao Hua's mind became clear. The fear and terror from before all disappeared. This boundless darkness and boundless loneliness had all become fleeting clouds. Hee. Besides, don't this Xiao have true monarch Qingyuan by his side? It can't be said that I'm lonely. It's a pity that this guy is a man. If it were Xian, that would be even better. Looking at Sun Jian floating beside him, the corners of Xiao Hua's mouth curled into a smile. Sun Jian seemed to have noticed Xiao Hua's abnormality. With some difficulty, he slightly tilted his head and looked at Xiao Hua. At this time, Xiao Hua seemed to have seen something terrifying, and his face changed greatly. Oh? Sun Jian was also shocked. He hurriedly followed Xiao Hua's gaze and saw that in the pitch-black darkness, not more than 100 feet away from the two of them, there were 2 dazzling threads of light. These threads of light twisted into an irregular shape, and on the other side of the threads of light were the 3 immortal soldiers who had fallen into the heavenly prison with Sun Jian. These 3 immortal soldiers were unable to move like Sun Jian and the others, and they also floated forward. However, the moment the threads of light appeared, the 3 immortal soldiers' hair began to turn white, and wrinkles began to appear on their faces. Then, their hair turned into nothingness, and their flesh began to disappear. In the end, the 3 immortal soldiers had turned into white bones. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the 3 immortal soldiers' bones turned into dust, and the immortal armor on their bodies rusted, slowly broke, and finally disappeared. The passage of time? Innate restriction? Looking at the familiar scene, Xiao Hua's heart shook greatly. He naturally thought of the mysterious innate formation in the depths of the West Ocean. Therefore, he hurriedly looked at Sun Jian. Fortunately, Sun Jian didn't change at all. On the other side of the 2 twisted threads of light, all the immortal soldiers and immortal generals didn't change at all. They didn't seem to have aged rapidly with the passage of time. Moreover, from the edge of the threads of light, there was a faint, obscure fluctuation. Xiaohua was shocked, and Sun Jian was scared out of his wits. Seeing this situation, how could he not know what was so terrifying about the heavenly prison? The law of time. No immortal palace's cultivators, including immortal emperors, could survive in this law of time. Naturally, no one could leave the heavenly prison alive. My essence blood. Has a trace of recovery? The obscure fluctuation passed through Xiaohua's body, and he suddenly felt a trace of it. Suddenly, Xiaohua's expression changed. Could it be that fluctuation? Yes, that fluctuation might be the fluctuation of the law of time. Xiaohua understood. There weren't any fluctuations in the darkness before, so there was no time. So my essence blood couldn't recover for a long time. Now, this area has the law of time, so I can recover my essence blood. So, in the other area I saw just now, the law of time there is different from here? Then, is it because their time is faster? Is our time slow? Or is it that we saw them die of old age extremely quickly, and they see us die of old age extremely quickly too? Even though we saw them die of old age, they are still living well in that area like us? In an instant, Xiaohua thought a lot, and Sun Jian grabbed Xiaohua's hand with more force. Not good. Just as Xiaohua's essence blood was recovering slightly, many halos flashed in the darkness in front of him. These halos weren't circular, and like the threads of light they saw before, they were abnormally distorted and didn't have any shape at all. These halos were originally as gorgeous as fireworks in the mortal world, but now in the eyes of Xiaohua, Sun Jian, and the others, they were like the most terrifying weapons of time. Everyone's eyes revealed despair. They clearly knew that behind each halo was a world of its own. In this world, there was no such thing as strength or cultivation. Everything was controlled by the fluctuations of time. The power, reputation, and strength that they had been pursuing would all disappear in an instant after a fluctuation. Shua. Just as everyone was panicking, another fluctuation appeared out of thin air. However, this fluctuation didn't have any effect on them. Everyone looked at each other in panic, but no one felt anything special. However, Xiaohua was different from the others. He felt as if he had come back from the jaws of death. His heart was filled with ecstasy. Isn't this a commonly seen fluctuation in the void? No, this fluctuation is even sharper than the fluctuation of this Zhao's nascent soul. It seems to be similar to the fluctuation of the blood bone in the blood pool of the gods and devils. If this fluctuation falls into the formless nascent soul, it will definitely stimulate the cultivation of the nascent soul. This Xiao understands. At this moment, although Xiaohua didn't know what this fluctuation was, he had a faint understanding in his heart. When this Xiao was pregnant in the void, I relied on this fluctuation. Moreover, that day when the nascent soul pill fell into my stomach, it also turned into a kind of strange fluctuation. In the blood pool of the gods and devils, it was also a kind of fluctuation that tempered the body. Could it be that this fluctuation is the essence of the world's origin qi, noble qi, or even the essence of dragon qi? In the immortal world, I need to use fluctuations to cultivate? No. The immortal world is the legendary immortal qi, and the dragon domain is the dragon spirit qi. Could it be the cultivation method of this fluctuation is higher than that of the immortal world? -13. Chapter 4073. Xiaohua pondered again. However, that might not be the case. There's no spiritual energy in the wilderness, so how did the human race cultivate back then? Perhaps this fluctuation is the cultivation path of the Empyreans in the wilderness? The fluctuation was like a straw, giving Xiaohua, who was on the brink of death, a sliver of hope. However, Sun Jian and the others weren't in such a good mood. They watched as the colorful halos split everyone into several groups. Sun Jian stared fixedly at the two people closest to him. As expected, the two of them also turned into withered bones. Sun Jian hurriedly turned to look at a distant halo. That halo had long since been empty. The immortal generals inside were nowhere to be found. Sun Jian panicked. He turned to look in another direction. Several immortal soldiers were floating strangely on one side of the halo. They didn't move at all. Whether it was the expression on their faces or the shock in their eyes, they were all still. When he looked at the other side of the immortal soldiers, he saw 3 to 5 toddlers waving their chubby arms and gradually disappearing into the pitch-black night sky. This bizarre scene caused Sun Jian's hair to stand on end. He couldn't help but look down at his own body, then at Xiao Hua, who was on his arm. "Can you see?" Sun Jian knew that Xiao Hua couldn't hear him clearly, but he still couldn't help but ask. After all, 10 days of fear had made his heart grow like grass. Not speaking would make him anxious. "I see it," Xiao Hua said. "You catch me, Sai." Sun Jian naturally knew that Xiao Hua was powerless against this bizarre situation. He sighed and looked to his left. The immortal soldiers and immortal generals who had been swept into Black Ruins Mountain with Sun Jian and Xiao Hua had now scattered into different halos and different time domains. Perhaps only the heavens knew if they were still alive or not. Swoosh! Sun Jian had just sighed when several more fluctuations rushed over. They were like drizzling rain. Sun Jian trembled inexplicably. Only after seeing that there were no changes to his body did he relax. Xiao Hua hurriedly urged his invisible nascent soul to absorb the fluctuations into his nascent soul. At the same time, after one of the fluctuations, Xiao Hua's essence blood recovered another strand. Several more days passed, and no more halos appeared in front of Xiao Hua and Sun Jian's eyes. Clearly, this large area was governed by the same laws of time. Moreover, in this area, Yuan Qi fluctuations and other strange fluctuations appeared one after another. Xiao Hua's blood essence had yet to be replenished, and his body still couldn't move. Therefore, he couldn't try to absorb other energy fluctuations. As for the space, Xiao Hua's mind was still unable to enter it. However, the space had already loosened a little. Xiao Hua knew that this was most likely related to the laws of time within the area. There's another ring of light ahead. In the pitch-black space, any light would always travel far. Sun Jian warned them from afar. Xiao Hua didn't bother to answer. He just waited for his essence blood to recover. Swoosh! After passing through a layer of halo, Xiao Hua and Sun Jian's figures suddenly became illusory. Their heads were already a day away, while their feet were still at the place where they had just entered the region. Looking at this strange scene and the deformed corporeal body, Xiao Hua's heart suddenly stirred. He thought to himself, in this heavenly prison, there's no such thing as Zhang or Li, right? There's only the sky and the moon. However, in different regions, the sky and the sky, the moon and the moon, the year and the year. Can they be compared? Of course, after several days, when Xiao Hua and Sun Jian flew out of this region, their legs also rushed through the halo along with their heads. They didn't really stay in the other region. And in this region, Xiao Hua's face gradually regained its color. Although the blood essence that had been extracted by the Sky Man's white bone hadn't completely recovered, it was enough for Xiao Hua to move. Sun Jian. When Xiao Hua opened his mouth, both of them were shocked, because this voice was extremely similar to what they usually spoke. Taoist Master Xiao. Sun Jian hurriedly retracted his arm. With an indescribable expression on his face, he asked, "Who is that Sun Hao? And what is that white bone of yours?" Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. He urged his magic power to stop, but no matter how he urged it, his flying body couldn't stop. Under the laws of time, I'm afraid there's no laws that can resist it. Xiao Hua seemed to be deep in thought. His gaze looked towards the pitch-black distance. Perhaps in other regions, there'll be an opportunity to urge my magic power to stop. If I don't stop, sooner or later I'll fall into an unpredictable region and die without a burial place. After thinking it through, Xiao Hua looked at Sun Jian with a bitter smile and replied, "Sun Jian, you and I have fallen into the Black Ruins Mountain. Since ancient times, no cultivator has ever been able to escape from there. What's the use of you asking so much? Could it be that you can report to the Immortal Emperor? Besides, I also don't know who Sun Hao is." Saying that, Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and said, "Give me that blood-colored bone." "No." Sun Jian had just said half a sentence when he dejectedly took out the blood bone from his bosom and handed it to Xiao Hua. He said, "You're right. Since you and I can't get out, what's the use of asking these things? Yeah, since we can't get out, what's the use of those magic treasures? Xiaohua said with a smile. I seem to have seen you have a Kunlun mirror before. Why don't you give that treasure to me as well? That's not the real Kunlun mirror. Sun Jian ignored Xiaohua's teasing and said, that's just the outer shell of the Kunlun mirror. Without the core of the Kunlun mirror, there wouldn't be a Kunlun wonderland inside, let alone the real Kunlun mirror. Xiaohua looked into the distance and held his chin with his hand. He said thoughtfully, Sun Jian, you and I can be together now, but drifting in this heavenly prison, can we be together forever? Impossible. Sun Jian shook his head. Perhaps after the next halo, even if I pull you, you and I will still be separated. Then do you think you can get out of this heavenly prison alive? Xiaohua asked again. Sun Jian looked at Xiaohua in confusion and asked curiously, what does Taoist Xiao mean? Nothing. I'm bored. I'm just casually asking. Xiaohua said with a smile. Let's not talk about the time fluctuation first. Sun Jian said, under that fluctuation, I don't have any power to resist and will definitely fall. Even if there is no fluctuation, in that pitch-black space like before, I can't cultivate and my lifespan can't increase. I will still die of old age here. If you can cultivate, you have a chance to live? Xiaohua asked back. Sun Jian waved his hand and ignored Xiaohua, as if what Xiaohua said was a joke. Give me the outer shell of the Kunlun mirror. Xiaohua stretched out his hand and said, maybe I will give you a surprise. Although Sun Jian knew that his Kunlun mirror was trash in the heavenly prison, he was still not moved by Xiaohua's words. He replied indifferently, the Kunlun mirror was bestowed by the immortal emperor. If you don't say it, how can I give it to you? Damn it. Xiaohua slapped his forehead and said with a smile, I forgot that the Kunlun mirror was bestowed by the immortal emperor. How can you casually take it out? It's just that Xiaohua's mind couldn't easily enter the space, so he naturally couldn't take out his Kunlun mirror. Therefore, he thought for a moment and didn't say anything. After flying for another 100 days, the two of them passed through 4 to 5 different time zones. Not only did Xiaohua's blood essence recover, he could also enter the space. When Xiaohua's mind entered the space and asked a little, he was stunned again. Because whether it was the green-robed Xiaohua, Fujiwen, and the other disciples, none of them felt any change in time. The entire space was the same as before. Moreover, the time that passed was similar to Xiaohua's estimation. I understand. After pondering for a moment and calculating the time that he estimated was different from the time that the green-robed Xiaohua said, Xiaohua somewhat understood. The time in this space is originally independent, just like the stacked Jade Legacy realm. However, because my mind is somewhat connected with the space, the time in this space is the same as the time zone that I came out of. Just like after the opening of the stacked Jade Legacy realm, it gradually synchronized with the time of the Dragon Island. Previously, when I entered the Black Ruins Mountain, there were no time fluctuations. Therefore, time also didn't flow in this space. Of course, the time zone in this heavenly prison is different from the Xintian Great Formation at the bottom of the West Ocean. That great formation forcibly stimulated time. Although there is time passing in this time zone, I can't see it. I can only see the time passing in the outside area. Those fallen immortal soldiers might have already died of old age in my eyes, but they might still be living well in there. However, Xiaohua's thoughts were all based on his own understanding. Whether they were correct or not, he himself didn't know. However, when he took out his Kunlun mirror, Sun Jian was completely dumbfounded. He looked at the two almost identical Kunlun mirrors in disbelief and asked in a low voice, Taoist Zhao's Kunlun mirror. Is there a Kunlun immortal realm? There is. Xiaohua replied without the slightest hesitation. If true monarch Qingwen is willing, you can also go in and cultivate. How is that possible? Sun Jian shook his head. This place can't activate magic treasures. It's impossible for you to take me in. Xiaohua smiled faintly and waved the Kunlun mirror in his hand, saying, Hee, if you give your Kunlun mirror to me, I might give you a pleasant surprise. Hee, Taoist Xiao must be joking. Sun Jian said with a smile, this place can't refine magic treasures. How are you going to refine 2 magic treasures that are originally one? Tell me. Are you going to give or not? Xiao Hua revealed his greedy nature. Give. Why wouldn't you give? Sun Jian raised his hand and stuffed the Kunlun mirror into Xiao Hua's hand, saying, I still want to see the difference between the real Kunlun immortal realm and Panglai immortal realm. Xiao Hua was overjoyed. He took Sun Jian's Kunlun mirror and sent it into the space along with his own Kunlun mirror for green-robed Xiao Hua to refine. Then, he suddenly realized something, saying, True Monarch Qing, what do you mean? What is the relationship between Panglai immortal realm and Kunlun immortal realm? Why do you want to see the difference between them? -13. Chapter 4074. This? Sun Jian hesitated, as if he had some secrets he didn't want to say. After a while, he said, The Kunlun mirror has the Kunlun immortal realm. Then, the other magic treasures also have the Panglai immortal realm. What magic treasures? Xiao Hua was confused. Also, the Panglai immortal realm. Isn't it in the immortal palace? This is a secret of the immortal palace. I only learned about it by chance, so it's not detailed. Sun Jian's words were a little vague. Xiao Hua sneered. You and I are already prepared to die in the heavenly prison. What secrets do you still want to keep? This is the immortal emperor's secret. The more Sun Jian explained, the more information he revealed. In the end, Sun Jian simply stopped talking. Hee. Xiao Hua laughed and didn't ask anymore. He began to sit cross-legged in the air with his eyes closed, allowing his body to drift into the depths of the heavenly prison while he calmed his mind to capture the fluctuations that were gradually becoming denser. There were many fluctuations in this area, and it could be said that they were heterogeneous. Xiao Hua could only distinguish the fluctuations of heaven and earth yuan qi and couldn't distinguish the other fluctuations. Seeing Xiao Hua sitting down as if he was cultivating, Sun Jian was a bit bewildered. However, seeing that there wasn't a trace of the world's origin energy around him, Sun Jian couldn't help but bitterly smile. He closed his eyes and rested for a moment before his thoughts became chaotic again. Not good. Another few days passed. Xiao Hua was selecting and testing the fluctuations when Sun Jian suddenly cried out. Xiao Hua opened his eyes and saw many rings of light in front of him. They were connected to each other, forming a very strange pattern. Oh no! Xiao Hua frowned and squinted his eyes. After a while, he sighed and said, Perfected Lord Qing, if there is no miracle, I'm afraid this is where you and I will part ways. Yes, it should be. Sun Jian's gaze is somewhat complicated as he looks at Xiao Hua. He clasps his hands and says, I have known Daoist Xiao for a while. I also know that Daoist Xiao is a good man who is loyal to his feelings. It's a pity that you and I are different from each other. I was demoted to Black Ruin Mountain because of you, and now I'll be buried in the heavenly prison with you. We're even. Huh? Xiao Hua was stunned. You came to guard Black Ruin Mountain because of me? Oh, I understand. In an instant, Xiao Hua understood a lot. He nodded and said, Since that's the case, then this Xiao will definitely repay you. However, before Xiao Hua could say a few words, the two of them suddenly sped up, and several indescribable auras rushed towards the two of them like hot air in the cold winter. When these auras landed on Xiao Hua's body, Xiao Hua involuntarily had a strange feeling. It was as if there were people talking and people fighting within these auras. There was even the fragrance of the earth and the dampness of the rain. Of course, these auras felt different, but it gave Xiao Hua a misconception that there was a small world within each of these auras. However, Xiao Hua didn't have time to ponder. That net-like halo quickly appeared in front of the two of them, and even a faint strand of light landed right in front of them. As Xiao Hua expected, wrinkles quickly appeared on Sun Jian's face at the other end of the light thread. Don't struggle. Xiao Hua didn't care whether Sun Jian could understand his words or not. He took out the Kunlun mirror with his mind, and then hurriedly released it to wrap around Sun Jian. However, Xiao Hua forgot that these were two different time zones. His eyes could see them, but his mind couldn't find them. Damn it. Xiao Hua didn't forget to hold the Kunlun mirror with one hand. His mind was like looking for a needle in a haystack, randomly waving around. At this moment, a stream of light suddenly streaked past Sun Jian, and a fist-sized black box appeared in Xiao Hua's field of vision. At the same time, Xiao Hua's mind suddenly felt a strange fluctuation in the distance. Xiao Hua didn't hesitate. His mind swept towards the distance, and Sun Jian and the black box disappeared from Xiao Hua's sight at the same time. Phew! Xiao Hua let out a sigh of relief and withdrew his mind like a waterfall. Sun Jian and the black box fell into his space. At this moment, Xiao Hua's figure rushed into another area. After that halo, Xiao Hua's mind was actually cut off by 30%. Damn it, that was close. Xiao Hua patted his chest very naturally. With his mind cut off, he could still cultivate through the sun-shrouding art and secret techniques. If he was half a step late, Sun Jian would have really died in that area. However, Xiao Hua didn't have time to check Sun Jian in the box at this moment, because in the immediate area, countless fluctuations surged over like a flood, drowning Xiao Hua in a moment. Only after several tens of days did Xiao Hua finally raise his head happily from the drowning of the fluctuations. His face was filled with pleasant surprise as he said with a smile, "Fellow Taoists, have you all noticed the abnormality of these fluctuations?" "All right, I'll let you know." Bone-honed Xiao Hua said first. "I have already found a fluctuation similar to the one in the blood pool of gods and demons. I can use this fluctuation to temper my bones." Phoenix Body Xiao Hua naturally didn't want to fall behind, and replied, "I also found a fluctuation suitable for myself. Although I haven't tried it yet, since fellow Taoist can use it, I can also use it." Hee, fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua of the dragon vein smiled even more. This poor Taoist is formed from the dragon spirit chi of the dragon domain. There are actually 4 or 5 of these fluctuations that this poor Taoist feels familiar. This poor Taoist can cultivate with them. Xiao Hua's heart moved, and he asked, "Can this fluctuation be activated with the heavenly dragon speech technique?" "Of course not." Dragon vein Xiao Hua replied. "This fluctuation contains a higher level of dragon spirit energy. I can use it to cultivate, but if it's activated with the heavenly dragon speech technique, it won't work." I understand." Xiao Hua nodded. "It should be that this heavenly dragon speech technique is too low level." "Yeah. In that case, this fluctuation, it's strange again." Dragon vein Xiao Hua replied. "Little brother, can also use it." A low voice timidly replied. It was the demonic spirit Xiao Hua. Hearing this voice, who would know that it was a demonic spirit that devoured blood? "Oh." Xiao Hua was somewhat puzzled and asked curiously, "Demonic spirits need black flames and demonic blood, with demonic energy." "Oh, I understand. Demonic energy can also be contained within fluctuations." "Exactly." The demonic spirit's voice was still very low, and within this fluctuation, there are almost 10 types that I can devour. "What about Confucian Immortal Friend?" Xiao Hua was somewhat concerned about Confucian Immortal Friend Xiao Hua. Confucian Immortal Friend Xiao Hua said proudly, "Don't worry, Immortal Friend. If it was before I obtained innate true Qi, I would still be somewhat confused. But after understanding the 5 Qi's unifications technique and the essence of true Qi cultivation, I don't need to rely on external objects to cultivate Confucian cultivation techniques to the literary star realm." Of course, within this fluctuation, I also discovered 2 fluctuations that were similar to righteous Qi. After I cultivate the 9 cauldrons and core of essence, I will concentrate on the matter of fluctuations. "Good." Xiao Hua looked at the pitch-black heaven prison, as well as the specks of light within the boundless darkness, and said with a smile, "In the eyes of others, this heaven prison is the end of life. In our eyes, it should be the starting point of a wonderful life. The fluctuations that others can't use to cultivate are the essence of heaven and earth that we casually pluck, and the death zone that others can only sit and wait for death is the paradise for us to cultivate. Fellow Taoists, there's no need to think too much. Just treat this disaster as a closed-door cultivation." "Haha, that's right." Confucian Immortal Friend Xiao Hua said with a smile. Immortal Friend Xiao Hua always wanted to go into closed-door cultivation, but in the end, you didn't have the time to do so. Because of the mundane affairs, you flew all over the hidden immortal continent. Now, even the heavens can't stand it anymore and gave you this chance to go into closed-door cultivation. Why don't you make good use of it?" Xiao Hua smiled bitterly, touched his nose and said, immortal friend. This kind of closed-door cultivation opportunity, I feel that it's better to have less of it. In the hidden immortal continent, I always know that I'm alive, but in this place, who knows when I'll be able to escape from here? Perhaps our closed-door cultivation this time is a closed-door cultivation where we'll never be able to come out. Don't tell me there's no chance to go out? Dragonvein Xiaohua said in a low voice. For example, that space crack in the folded jade legacy realm? This place is not a space tunnel, where you can find the exit. Xiaohua shook his head slightly. Even if I's illusion breaker magic, I can tear the void. It can't be used here. Speaking up to here, Xiaohua's heart moved, then he frowned and said, however, when we first entered this area, there were several indescribable auras, extremely strange. It was completely different from the deathly stillness in this heavenly prison. Fellow Taoists, please wait a moment, let I think. After a moment, Xiaohua opened his mouth again. Everyone must still remember the situation that day, right? In this heavenly prison, there were originally no halos, but because the time rules were different in the places where the time zones touched, they produced dazzling halos. In the beginning, between the two halos, we didn't discover any strange aura. That's because the two halos were very close to each other. But recently, there were more halos, which means that the time zones also increased at the same time. The places where these halos didn't touch should be the places where the time zones didn't cover. That aura should be emitted from these time gaps. That's right. Confucian immortal Xiaohua shouted. These time gaps are some fragments of the heavenly prison, which is our chance to escape. The problem is, Dragonvein Xiaohua shook his head. How do we use these fragments? I have been to the stacked jade legacy realm. The situation there is different from here. It seems that we don't have any power to escape here. Even if we find the real-time gaps, it still won't work. Confucian immortal Xiaohua was silent for a moment, then said, having hope is better than nothing. Now, let's think about how to find the time fragments to return to the hidden immortal continent. Naturally, we'll use fellow Taoist's divine sense to find it. Bone-honing Xiaohua also suggested, perhaps we can find it, hiss. Xiaohua suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air, as if he thought of something. Sure enough, Confucian immortal Xiaohua smiled. Fellow Taoist seems to have forgotten fellow Taoist soul cultivator. He has the way south opposite north technique. Moreover, fellow Taoist universal transference token has the mark of the Black Wind Mountains transmission array, and it seems that fellow Taoist also left a divine sense mark on the snowy mountain of the Western Paradise's Linglong Temple. If fellow Taoist's divine sense is strong enough, or fellow Taoist soul cultivator's way south opposite north technique is profound enough, we might have a chance to get out. -13. Chapter 4075. Fellow Immortal is right. Xiaohua nodded. First of all, we should cultivate diligently and cultivate our techniques to the extreme. Maybe some kind of magical ability can help us escape from the heavenly prison. Second, I should fly towards the depths of the heavenly prison. Maybe we can find some usable time fragments and have a chance to escape. Finally, I should refine my divine sense and let fellow Taoist refine the soul technique and the going south way north technique. Once we find the Great Snow Mountain's divine sense mark between the fragments, we can use the going south way north technique to escape from here. But, Demon Spirit Xiaohua asked in a low voice, we can't use any magical ability here. We can't use it here, but it doesn't mean we can't use it elsewhere, especially near the time fragments. Xiaohua smiled. Moreover, if we can find the divine sense mark there, the going south way north technique can also be used. We'll listen to fellow Taoist's instructions. The group of primordial spirits were overjoyed. They agreed and went to cultivate. Xiaohua's psyche entered the soul formation sky and explained everything to the soul cultivator Xiaohua. When the soul cultivator Xiaohua flew out from the mysterious dark clouds, he didn't leave Xiaohua's body. Immediately, his body flashed with brilliant green light and countless energy waves rushed into his body like moths to a flame. The green seal appeared out of thin air and fluttered around him. There's a strong aura of desolation here. Soul cultivator Xiaohua said happily, I should cultivate here. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and nodded. As long as you don't leave I's body, you can cultivate anywhere. However, fellow Taoist must focus on the going south way north technique. This is the foundation of our escape. Fellow Taoist, don't expect too much from this technique. Soul cultivator Xiao Hua shook his head. Not to mention whether this technique can take us back to the Pure Land from here. Even if it can, I can't practice it with my current cultivation. In fellow Taoist's opinion, Xiao Hua naturally wouldn't naively think that he could leave the heavenly prison immediately. Soul cultivator Xiao Hua thought for a moment and replied, "Solitary sky is the most basic condition." Xiao Hua was a little dumbfounded when he heard this, but what made him dumbfounded was still behind. "I'm afraid that it will be 1,000 years before I can cultivate to the silent sky realm." 1,000 years later? Xiao Hua was stunned and blurted out, "Such a long time." It only takes a little more than 1,000 years to complete soul cultivation. Fellow Taoist, don't you think you're blessed by the heavens? Soul cultivator Xiao Hua mocked. "That's right, I was too greedy." Xiao Hua was disappointed, but he immediately came to his senses. "Fellow Taoist, take your time and cultivate. Don't be anxious. Right now, we are in seclusion. Whether it's 1,000 years or 10,000 years, we can only leave seclusion once we succeed." "All right," Soul cultivator Xiao Hua replied, then began to cultivate. Xiao Hua's consciousness retreated. He looked at the many primordial spirits cultivating, then entered the space again. This area in the space was exactly the same as the Kunlun Wonderland. Sun Jian, who looked like a withered old man, was sitting there with a black box beside him. Perfected Lord Qingyuan. The Jade Archive Xiao Hua still transformed into Xiao Hua's appearance and landed in front of Sun Jian. Sun Jian turned his fish-like eyes and looked at Xiao Hua indifferently, as if he didn't recognize him. After half a cup of tea's time, he hesitated and asked tentatively, Xiao Hua?" "That's right." Xiao Hua nodded. "It's me." "Perfected Xiao?" Sun Jian suddenly seemed to come alive. He jumped up with difficulty and pulled Xiao Hua, saying, Didn't we still escape from the heavenly prison?" Seeing Sun Jian like this, Xiao Hua felt a little bitter in his heart. He said in a low voice, "Perfected Lord Qing, don't be anxious. Tell me what happened first." "What happened?" Sun Jian let out a bitter laugh. There were actually some tears in his eyes. "You and I fell into the Black Ruins Mountain. Previously, we were still drifting in the heavenly prison together. As immortal soldiers and immortal generals fell one after another, it was time for us to part. Too much time has passed. I already can't remember what you said at that time. I only know that after you finished speaking, you didn't say anything. No matter how I talked to you, you ignored me. You stopped outside the halo, not moving at all. Later, I also got tired and stopped paying attention to you. I drifted in the pitch-black, heavenly prison by myself. Perhaps it was 2,000 years or 3,000 years. I don't know exactly how long it was. I only remember that I was getting older and older, and my lifespan was getting closer and closer. Finally, another huge force pulled me out of the pitch-black darkness. This pull lasted for several hundred years. Then, you came." At this point, Sun Jian looked around and asked again, "You? Why didn't you change at all? Isn't this the hidden immortal continent? Where is this place?" Xiao Hua held his chin. His heart was in a perilous situation. To him, it was merely a short moment, but to Sun Jian, it was actually 3,000 years. Time law is indeed the most profound law in this world. Sun Jian didn't pursue the matter. 3,000 years of time had given him enough patience. Xiao Hua replied, "True monarch Qingyuan, do you still remember the Kunlun mirror case you gave me? Could it be this place is the Kunlun immortal realm?" Sun Jian said in shock. Then you yourself. I am naturally still in the heavenly prison." Xiao Hua nodded and said, "You just fell into that time zone. I immediately used the Kunlun mirror to take you into the Kunlun immortal realm. To me, it was merely an instant, but to you, it was different. Therefore, I didn't change at all." "I understand." Sun Jian nodded slightly and said with a sigh, "It was merely an instant. My life has reached its end again." Xiao Hua looked at Sun Jian's withered face and asked, "Fellow immortal, your lifespan has reached its end?" Sun Jian shook his head. Fellow immortal, can you cultivate in the Kunlun immortal realm? Since Fu Jiwen could cultivate in the space, Sun Jian could naturally cultivate as well. However, Xiao Hua still asked. Sigh. Sun Jian sighed. Looking at the picturesque Kunlun immortal realm, he said, the path of cultivation has already left me 1,000 years ago. You and I are no longer on the same path. Xiao Hua suddenly realized. Sun Jian had stayed in the heavenly prison for 3,000 years. He couldn't cultivate. 3,000 years was enough to change everything. You have already lost your cultivation? Xiao Hua asked probingly. Sun Jian shook his head. If I didn't have my cultivation, how could I have lived until now? However, right now, my cultivation is almost the same as not having it. I only want to devote my remaining life to the mountains and rivers. I hope that Taoist Master Xiao will give me this opportunity. Don't you want to try cultivating? Xiao Hua advised. When I just came in, I thought about it. Sun Jian finally spoke the truth. Furthermore, I also tried it. I can cultivate in this Kunlun immortal realm. However, my lifespan is almost up. If I can't break through my realm, I'm afraid I can't live for another year. Haha. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, since Taoist Master Qing is willing, then it's easy. While speaking, Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and pointed his index finger at Sun Jian's forehead. At the top of the Voidbreaker Eye, a strand of crystal light entered it. Sun Jian's body shook, and he hurriedly closed his eyes. After half a cup of tea's time, when Xiao Hua moved his finger away, tears flowed out from the corners of Sun Jian's eyes. Without opening his eyes, he shouted, the ancients said that it's enough to die at night. I finally understand. After speaking, Sun Jian opened his eyes and was about to throw himself on the ground and kowtow to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his sleeve and helped him up. He said with a smile, Taoist Master Qing, although you and I are different from Taoists and Confucians, what you said in Black Ruins Mountain was right. You and I have become friends, and both of us are hypocritical. Now that you are in the heavenly prison because of me, how can I not save you? Of course, it's still too early for me to say anything about saving you out of the heavenly prison. This 5-cheese unification technique, just treat it as a small token of my appreciation. I can accept your appreciation, but I can't forget the ceremony of teaching. Sun Jian thought for a while and replied stubbornly, Master Xiao, just call me Sun Jian in the future. Thinking about Sun Jian's loyalty to the immortal emperor, Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and said, as you wish. Sure enough, Sun Jian immediately asked, can I tell the immortal emperor about this 5-cheese unification technique? Xiao Hua said helplessly, let's not talk about this first. We'll talk about it after we get out of the heavenly prison. Yes, Master Xiao. Sun Jian nodded. Haha, Sun Jian, no need to be so polite. Xiao Hua said with a smile, it's best if it's the same as before. Otherwise, I'll feel awkward too. All right, Sun Jian said with a smile, I understand. Then you should hurry up and cultivate. Xiao Hua said, if your lifespan is almost up and you still haven't broken through, just tell me. I might have other ways. Actually, it's not that I can't break through to the 5th grade of essence energy. Sun Jian said with a smile, it's that I'm not willing to break through, because I feel that there are some flaws in my cultivation technique. If I break through to the 5th grade of essence energy, there will be some flaws that are hard to fix. Now that I have Master Zhao's cultivation technique, breaking through to the 5th grade of essence energy is just around the corner. Haha, that's good. Xiao Hua took out a transmission talisman and said, if you have any questions or want to find me, you can send a transmission talisman to me. This transmission talisman can be sent outside of the Kunlun immortal realm? Sun Jian was a little confused. Xiao Hua's figure flew up and said with a smile, of course not, but I have a clone cultivating in the Kunlun immortal realm. Master Xiao is actually a clone right now? Sun Jian was extremely astonished. What cultivation level is Master Xiao at? I'm not a literary star either. Xiao Hua said as he flew. Fellow immortal Sun can use it as a target to try. Haha, of course. Sun Jian laughed loudly and said heroically, I still have to find Sun how to settle the score. How can it be possible without the strength of a literary star? Jade Archive Xiao Hua flew up into the air. With a wave of his hand, the black box that was placed not far away from Sun Jian previously appeared in his hand. This box looked very ordinary. There were no runes on its surface, nor were there any fluctuations. However, even Jade Archive Xiao Hua's gaze could not see through such an ordinary item. Damn it, how can something that can appear in the Heaven Prison and not be destroyed by the time array be ordinary? Jade Archive Xiao Hua did not dare to carelessly destroy this box. After thinking for a while, he carefully sent the box to a corner of the space and then flew out of the barrier around Sun Jian's area. -13. Chapter 4076. As soon as the Jade Archive Xiao Hua appeared in the space, the green-robed Xiao Hua appeared in front of him with a rare serious expression. He said, "Fellow Taoist, this is the biggest crisis we have encountered in our lives." "That's right." The Jade Archive Xiao Hua nodded. "But we were lucky enough to survive in the heavenly prison. I didn't have time to cultivate in seclusion, so I will cultivate in seclusion to my heart's content this time. Fellow Taoist, you should take charge of the cultivation of the formless nascent soul and those scattered nascent souls. Let's see how far you can cultivate." "All right." The green-robed Xiao Hua also knew the danger of this trip, so he agreed. The Jade Archive Xiao Hua left the space and fell into Xiao Hua's lower dantian, urging the formless nascent soul to cultivate. Seeing that everything was arranged properly, Xiao Hua looked at the endless darkness, sat down cross-legged, and continued to refine his divine sense. His divine sense was like a hammer, but it was still far from being able to find the great snow mountain's divine sense mark in the heavenly prison. Cultivators often said that cultivation was without time, and cultivating in the heavenly prison was even more without time. Following Xiao Hua's seclusion, his figure floated past one time zone after another. These time zones either had fluctuations used for cultivation, or were empty and silent, or had some chaotic fluctuations. When there were fluctuations, Xiao Hua began to cultivate. When there were no fluctuations, Xiao Hua closed his eyes to comprehend. Day after day, year after year. Years after years passed like flowing water, passing in front of Xiao Hua's eyes like fluctuations. In the beginning, Xiao Hua would occasionally count the days, but as time passed, he was too lazy to count. In short, one divine ability after another was cultivated, one realm after another was broken through, and secret techniques were also cultivated one after another. Xiao Hua's seclusion achievements were harvested one after another. In this long process of cultivation, Xiao Hua had other discoveries. The time in the space was actually not exactly the same as the time in the heavenly prison. Just like the folded jadeite forgotten realm, Xiao Hua's mind did not enter the space. Although the time in the space was moving according to inertia, it was still slower than the heavenly prison. Moreover, the more Xiao Hua's mind did not enter the space, the slower the time was. However, as long as Xiao Hua's mind entered the space, the time law in the space would forcibly coincide with the heavenly prison, speeding up the flow. Therefore, in the end, Xiao Hua's mind would not rashly enter the space unless it was absolutely necessary. Even so, an earth-shattering change had occurred within the space. The size of the space increased once again. When Xiao Hua's spiritual sense reached 60,000 miles, the space expanded to 60 million miles. All the spiritual pets in the space were hatched. The Iceworm King, Water Pattern Butterfly, Dream Mirage Butterfly, and so on were placed into different seals by Jade Archive Xiao Hua. As for Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede, they had also undergone incredible changes. On the other hand, the rainbow conch that Xiao Hua brought out from the Xiantian Grand Array at the bottom of the West Ocean was not affected at all. Within the space, the one who was most helpful to Xiao Hua's cultivation was Xiao Guo. Ever since Xiao Hua's ancient golden core in the Dragon Island's stacked jadeite legacy realm, Xiao Guo had learned an even more profound alchemy technique from this so-called golden core. In particular, from this ancient golden pill, Xiao Guo had comprehended the realm of Dao sect pills. Although Xiao Guo had not reached the spirit-severing stage or the unification stage, it could still help Xiao Hua refine suitable pills and help him break through. There was also a lightning tribulation in the heavenly prison. The lightning tribulation in the heavenly prison was different from that in the hidden immortal continent. This lightning tribulation wasn't attracted by Xiao Hua's tribulation, but by chance he encountered it in different time zones. The lightning tribulation wasn't a thunderbolt or a flash of lightning, nor was it a dense cloud. Like the chi of heaven and earth, it was also a fluctuation. It was just that this fluctuation was abnormally tyrannical, and the power it contained far surpassed that of the hidden, immortal continent. Although the fluctuations of the lightning tribulation were very difficult to see in time zones, Xiao Hua could always encounter it a few times in 10,000 years. Therefore, not only was his Tao sect cultivation close to the middle Mahayana stage, even Xiao Hua's formless nascent soul and those scattered nascent souls had all transcended 8 lightning tribulations and become rank 8 scattered nascent souls. It was worth mentioning that 5,000 years after Xiao Hua fell into the heavenly prison, Buddha Subhuti came out of seclusion. As soon as Subhuti came out of seclusion, there was immediately endless Buddhist essence that seeped into Xiao Hua's mind like a sweet rain. This sweet rain made Xiao Hua, who was somewhat impetuous, calm down immediately. Although Xiao Hua said that he treated the falling heavenly prison as a closed-door cultivation, this closed-door cultivation was different from a real closed-door cultivation. During the 5,000 years, Xiao Hua had flown through many time zones, experienced many time fragments, and was disappointed again and again. This made him as confused and dispirited as Sun Jian was back then. This negative emotion directly affected the cultivation of the other primordial spirits. And after Xiao Hua shared these Buddhist essences with other primordial spirits, these messy and harmful negative emotions were immediately strangled. The pleasant surprise that Buddha Subhuti brought to Xiao Hua was not limited to this. As early as before Subhuti came out of seclusion, he passed on some true essence of sarira and physical body cultivation. And after Subhuti came out of seclusion, he thoroughly comprehended the foundation of sarira cultivation, pushing the comprehension of Buddhist divine ability to the peak. The most direct result was that Xiao Hua had the possibility of being completely separated from his other primordial spirits, making up for the consequences of Xiao Hua's previous rash splitting of his primordial spirit. Moreover, what made Xiao Hua pleasantly surprised was that after green-robed Xiao Hua obtained this kind of comprehension, he thought of Shang Hua's underworld human-bodied snake-tailed deity statue in the space. Xiao Hua naturally knew that the deity statue had some secrets that he didn't know, but even if he entered the space with the identity of Jade Archive Xiao Hua, he couldn't see any trace of it. However, after green-robed Xiao Hua obtained the Buddhist essence, he immediately entered the space. In order to not affect the time inside the space, Xiao Hua's mind didn't enter the space. Green-robed Xiao Hua came out of the space in just a moment, holding a fist-sized 7-colored crystal in his hand. This crystal was extracted from the chest of the deity statue by green-robed Xiao Hua using the Buddhist essences. Xiao Hua's divine sense, Buddhist sense, and soul sense couldn't penetrate the crystal. Only Xiao Hua's divine sense could. When Xiao Hua saw what was inside, he was ecstatic. It was a drop of blood essence. The blood essence exuded a powerful aura, and after Xiao Hua easily swallowed the blood essence, the Thousand Demon Realm external avatar technique appeared clearly in Xiao Hua's mind. At this time, Xiao Hua understood that the deity statue had always had the Thousand Demon Realm avatar technique, but without the foundation of the Thousand Demon Realm avatar technique, it was impossible to perceive the existence of this secret technique. Shang Huoming's cultivation technique was only the most basic of the basics. Even after cultivating it, he still wasn't qualified to cultivate an avatar. Even if the 10,000 Demon Realms goddess gave him some cultivation techniques and the Heavenly Abode Rivers technique, it still wasn't enough. On the contrary, Ku Tuchuo's Buddhist secret technique about the flesh and sarira made up for this gap. This allowed Xiao Hua to obtain this secret technique from the deity statue and have the ability to cultivate it. After obtaining the Thousand Demon Realm avatar technique, many of the primordial spirits were overjoyed. While comprehending their own techniques, they also seized the opportunity to comprehend the Thousand Demon Realm avatar technique. Afterward, Buddha Bodhi's cultivation continued step by step. In the heavenly prison, Bodhi couldn't sense the power of faith, so he couldn't use the fluctuations in the heavenly prison. Therefore, he studied the Buddhist scriptures and carefully cultivated the exquisite temple dharma. He also used the sarira to cultivate. A long time was enough for Bodhi to thoroughly comprehend the Buddhist techniques, condense the 8 feet golden body, and practice the Buddhist 8 syllables. As for the other Buddhist secret techniques, such as the power of mountains, the power of sound, the power of stars, the power of karma, and so on, there were countless of them. Soul cultivator Xiao Hua's cultivation was of the utmost importance. The Thousand Demon Realm Avatar technique was the foundation of Xiao Hua's escape from the heavenly prison. Therefore, the cultivation of soul magic was the focus of Xiao Hua's attention. Soul cultivator Xiao Hua was even more blessed than the other primordial spirits. The heavenly prison had many fluctuations of the primitive aura, which he could use many times more than the other primordial spirits. Moreover, the Magus Codex in the mysterious dark cloud had a complete record of green seal script. With the help of the underworld fruit, soul cultivator Xiao Hua reached the solitary sky realm in about 5,000 years, and had mastered 360 green seal scripts. Previously, when he entered the forbidden spring ocean, soul cultivator Xiao Hua risked his life to see the green seal script of the 3 heavens beyond the heavens. Therefore, soul cultivator Xiao Hua knew that he still had a long way to go. After he mastered the green seal scripts in the Magus Codex, he continued to search for other green seal scripts among the inheritances of the 12 deities. The inheritances of the 12 deities were as vast as the sea. Soul cultivator Xiao Hua was immersed in them and gained a lot. Of course, the Thousand Demon Realm Avatar technique that Xiao Hua valued the most, soul cultivator Xiao Hua had already succeeded in cultivating it before he comprehended the inheritances of the 12 deities. Dragon Vein Xiao Hua's cultivation was also very smooth. He was originally formed from the dragon cleansing liquid in the dragon cleansing pond, so he was very sensitive to fluctuations of energy. Apart from the earliest time when Dragon Vein Xiao Hua cultivated with the help of some dragon crystals, he completely relied on the fluctuations of the heavenly prison. What was special was that the complete dragon jade not only contained the heavenly dragon language technique, but also the complete set of cultivation techniques of the Dragon Island. In the end, Dragon Vein Xiao Hua's strength was not inferior to Phoenix Body Xiao Hua. Of course, Phoenix Body Xiao Hua's cultivation was also very successful. The Supreme Saint bloodline in his body was constantly fusing with his monster body. Every time a fluctuation of time passed by his body, Phoenix Body Xiao Hua would be able to comprehend the profoundness of the primitive catalog. However, the Supreme Saint bloodline was really too profound. It was an inheritance of the monster race for some unknown purpose. 10,000 years of cultivation was not enough for Phoenix Body Xiao Hua to uncover the veil of the Supreme Saint bloodline. Phoenix Body Xiao Hua's cultivation had only just begun. Bone-tempering Xiao Hua failed to control the white bone deities in front of the Black Ruins Mountain and was instead controlled by the deities' blood bones. After entering the heavenly prison, his arrogant attitude had clearly changed. Later on, when bone-tempering Xiao Hua was cultivating, he became even more courageous after knowing shame. He was even more hardworking than other primordial spirits, wanting to lend Xiao Hua a helping hand at crucial moments. -13. Chapter 4077. It was a pity that Xiao Hua's other cultivation methods were all complete, but he didn't have many cultivation methods for tempering his bones. He didn't even have a complete cultivation method for tempering his bones. His current fire origin was quickly cultivated to the pinnacle by him. His entire white bones had turned into a brilliant golden color. After finishing the bone tempering, Xiao Hua practiced other techniques. He cultivated the 5 elements escape technique he obtained from Yazi Auction House to the extreme. As for the most difficult to find wind escape technique, because he didn't have any techniques, Xiao Hua could only cultivate it to the intermediate level. Devil Spirit Xiao Hua wasn't a part of Xiao Hua's primordial spirit, but he was controlled by Xiao Hua using Blood Shadow technique. Devil Spirit Xiao Hua first obtained the blood bones fluctuation in the God Devil blood pool. His heavenly cave had already undergone a qualitative transformation. Inside the heavenly prison, there were even more fluctuations. The devil race was similar to the monster race. They relied on devouring blood and devil chi to cultivate. This kind of strange energy wave was much more useful than blood. The devil spirit Xiao Hua's growth in this heavenly prison was extremely fast. It was even higher than Xiaohua's Dao sect cultivation by a large margin. Sometimes, when Xiaohua saw devil spirit Xiaohua's cultivation base advance by leaps and bounds, Xiaohua sighed with emotion. However, devil spirit Xiaohua's cultivation base increased the most rapidly. Unexpectedly, it was Confucian cultivator Xiaohua. When he first entered the heavenly prison, Xiaohua felt that there was no noble spirit qi here. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua's cultivation might stagnate. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua also found the noble spirit qi's fluctuation, but this fluctuation was extremely small. However, the true qi in Xiaohua's chest had been cultivated for a long time, and had even reached the 18th layer of the qi refining realm. After the seal was lifted, this true qi transformed into the true qi of a Confucian cultivator, and finally formed the true 5 qis unification. This process was the most tortuous, but also the longest. Therefore, after obtaining the innate true qi kindling, the Confucian cultivator Xiaohua embarked on the correct path of Confucian cultivation. Although he borrowed the fluctuations of the heavenly prison, he didn't just rely on those fluctuations. He used his internal organs to stimulate the 9 cauldrons, cultivated the 5 qis unification, and finally condensed the 3 flowers of his innate true qi on the basis of the 5 qis unification. While Xiaohua's Yuan Shun had made great progress, Xiaohua's disciples had also made unimaginable progress. Although Xiaohua's mind avoided entering the space to accelerate the flow of time, thousands of years still passed in the space. For ordinary Dao sect cultivators, these thousands of years were enough for them to cultivate to the void refinement realm. For disciples like Lu Yi, reaching the void refinement realm was even easier. However, since Xiaohua understood the principle of good preparation, he also had all kinds of experience in cultivation. When he asked the green-robed Xiaohua to guide his disciples in their cultivation, he deliberately suppressed their breakthroughs. Even when they were in the aura refining realm, he also made them attempt to break through to the 18th layer of the aura refining realm. When they were pregnant, he also imprinted all the meridians in their bodies into their minds. Of course, not everyone would be able to successfully refine all the meridians in their nascent soul. Everyone's meridians would be different depending on their aptitude. However, just by relying on these nascent soul meridians, how could they be a little bit stronger than other Dao sect cultivators? Moreover, under Xiaohua's instructions, the green-robed Xiaohua made them cultivate other orthodoxies cultivation methods. Lu Yi cultivated Buddhism, Wang Bianfei cultivated Confucianism, Wu Tian cultivated divination, and so on. Therefore, on the surface, Xiaohua's disciples' cultivation was only at the 6th or 7th grade, but each of them had the strength and standard to establish a sect. The green-robed Xiaohua was in charge of the fortune gate. Although his disciples didn't learn as many things as Lu Yi and the others, there were many disciples whose cultivation was stronger than Lu Yi and the others. This made the green-robed Xiaohua flaunt in front of Xiaohua for a long time. As for the fortune gate's development, it made the green-robed Xiaohua smile from ear to ear. Because the world's spiritual energy was abundant in the space, and there were no other sects, the fortune gate's original 30,000 disciples cultivated to an extremely high level. Moreover, as the disciples married, the fortune gate rapidly expanded, reaching 200,000 disciples in the end. Later, under Confucian cultivator Xiaohua's suggestion, the fortune gate no longer recruited disciples, but chose to impart suitable cultivation methods. Therefore, almost 2 million people in the space cultivated Dao sect, and they were all considered fortune gate disciples. Then there were the 2 million people in the space. Where did they come from? The green-robed Xiaohua didn't know, nor did the Confucian cultivator Xiaohua. Only Xiaohua knew in his heart that these were the souls reincarnated from the inside of the space. In Wuyuan County, Jingwei County, and Fancheng County, Xiaohua had taken in more than 100,000 people who were killed by the infernal judge's clone, but the number of souls he absorbed with the netherworld origin power was 10 times more. These souls lived and grew on the underworld fruit, and when the yin and yang side of the space intersected, they would be born from the yin side of the space to the yang side of the space. When the yang side of the space reached the end of its lifespan, the souls would be transferred to the yin side of the space and enter the underworld fruit again. This kind of reincarnation of life and death was the most primitive law of heaven and earth. After this law was born, there was a mysterious law power that entered Shue's soul. Of course, although Lui's mother and Fujiwen's parents were nourished by the world's spiritual energy, they couldn't escape death. After using the rejuvenation pill, they still fell into the inside of the space and reincarnated as humans. Xiaohua couldn't see through all the mysterious changes happening in the space, but the heavenly Dao Xiaohua and Karma Xiaohua were watching everything from the inside the space at all times. Thus, they were able to comprehend all kinds of mysteries. All of this might not be of any use to the current Xiaohua, but it would be of vital importance to Xiaohua's future cultivation. On this day, Xiaohua opened his eyes and looked at the darkness around him, and asked, "Green-robed fellow Taoist, how many years have passed?" "Let me tell you, fellow Taoist, what you and I have experienced is probably 20,000 years." Green-robed Xiaohua replied with a smile, "Nascent soul stage cultivators like us should have passed through the 8th stage. Every 1,000 years, there would be a tribulation, so it would take 8,000 years. Moreover, the lightning tribulation can't be encountered all the time, so it should be 20,000 years. Damn it, 20,000 years ah. Xiaohua took a deep breath as if he had a toothache. 20,000 years of seclusion. I only reached the Mahayana realm. Speaking of which, the last few realms actually took so much time? Green-robed Xiaohua said with a smile. Although it is said that 20,000 years have passed, there is a lot of time without any fluctuations for cultivation. I'm afraid you and I have only cultivated for 10,000 years. Besides, the cultivation method is very clear. Generally speaking, it takes 600 years to cultivate the gold core realm, 1,200 years to cultivate the nascent soul realm, 2,400 years to cultivate the spirit separation realm, 5,600 years to cultivate the void refinement realm, 11,200 years to cultivate the body integration realm, and nearly 10,000 years to cultivate the mid-Mahayana realm. You can calculate it yourself. How many years will it take? Fellow Taoist only used 20,000 years to cultivate to the middle stage of the Mahayana realm. It is already very rare in the world. Don't mention the cultivation method of the Taoist sect. Xiaohua waved his hand with a wry smile. Now, I don't even know if my cultivation method is still in the Mahayana realm. Fellow Taoist Longmai has already completely left my meridians. I don't have any meridians in my body at all. Fellow Taoist Longmai is just relying on the secret technique of the dragon race to temporarily live in I's body. Although you don't have any meridians, your Taoist sect's cultivation method, true essence, and tempering fluctuations can still rely on your body. As long as you have a body, you are still a Taoist sect cultivator. Green-robed Xiaohua replied with certainty. Xiaohua didn't refute and said, "You and I have been debating about this for thousands of years. I have long been tired of it, so let's not talk about it in the future." "Up to you." Green-robed Xiaohua shrugged and said, "I also don't have any meridians. Aren't I still a Taoist sect cultivator? What about the time and the space?" Xiaohua changed the topic and asked. Green-robed Xiaohua replied, "It has already been 10,000 years since fellow Taoist last came to the space. The time in the space is still stable, more than half of the time in the heavenly prison. It should be around 6,000 years now. 6,000 years in the space." Xiaohua smiled wryly and said, "Then I'm afraid it will be 5,000 years in the hidden immortal continent. When we go back, things will remain the same, but people will change. Hee, I am looking forward to it. I wonder if the soaring Dragon Mountain Range's Fortune Gate or I's Fortune Gate is more powerful." Green-robed Xiaohua said with a hint of showing off. Xiaohua didn't miss the opportunity to remind green-robed fellow Taoist, "Don't forget that the heaven and earth origin energy in the space is different from the hidden immortal continent. I don't know if the Fortune Gate's disciples can come out of the space." "I have already thought about this," green-robed Xiaohua replied confidently. "Although these disciples are gestating their nascent souls in the space, and their nascent souls are condensed from the heaven and earth spirit energy in the space, they still have their physical bodies. With the protection of their physical bodies, they can definitely appear in the hidden immortal continent. Don't forget about fellow Taoist Longmai." Xiaohua smiled and said, "He can't even enter the space at this time. He seems different." Green-robed Xiaohua scratched his head. I seem to have forgotten something. Fellow Taoist Longmai can definitely enter the space. What about that black box? Did you find anything? Xiao Hua thought of something again. No, that box is normally very tight. Other than not being able to open it, there is nothing unusual. Forget it. Let's wait for the opportunity. Xiao Hua raised his head and looked at the dazzling light in the distance. It was like the aurora he saw in the dawn rain continent. He said, "How can the things in the heavenly prison be ordinary?" That's right. Let's wait for the opportunity. Green-robed Xiao Hua agreed. I don't know how many time fragments we have flown past in the past 20,000 years, but we have never found the divine sense mark of the Western Paradise. Now that we are getting further and further away from the Black Ruins Mountain, the hope is getting more and more uncertain. Who knows where the opportunity is? Green-robed fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua looked at the time halo in the distance and didn't care about it. He asked again, say, if I cultivate in the heavenly prison and pass the tribulation, will I ascend to the immortal world? -13. Chapter 4078. That won't happen. Green-robed Xiao Hua replied resolutely and decisively. If you were in the hidden immortal continent or the daybreak continent, even if you were sealed by a powerful enemy, as long as you cultivate to the crossing tribulation stage, all the seals and formations in the world would be destroyed by the laws of heaven and earth, and you would be able to escape. However, this is the heavenly prison, filled with the laws of time. The so-called lightning tribulation is nothing but a wisp of fluctuation inside. The power of the laws of the immortal world is absolutely unable to surpass the laws of time. You absolutely cannot use the power of the heavenly tribulation to escape from the heavenly prison. Speaking up to here, the layers of halos had already approached, and a strange aura and a noisy feeling assaulted his senses. Facing disappointment after disappointment, facing this unfamiliar aura, Xiao Hua casually urged his soul technique and mixed his soul sense with his divine sense. However, after a moment, he was disappointed again. Previously, in Xiao Hua's imagination, he used his divine sense to explore the divine sense mark he left on the Great Snow Mountain. But when he actually used it, he discovered a huge flaw. After all, no matter how powerful his divine sense was, it couldn't exceed the distance of the transmission channel. If he could really use his divine sense to perceive the Great Snow Mountain in Elysium, why would he use the transmission channel? He could directly teleport there. And when Xiao Hua successfully practiced the going south, north technique, Xiao Hua understood that soul techniques already had a way to sense the divine sense mark with his soul sense. Using the power of the soul to sense it was many times more brilliant than using divine sense to explore. Therefore, when Xiao Hua later detected the divine sense mark, he used his divine sense and soul sense to urge his soul technique to complete it. However, even with such a wonderful soul technique, in this vast and boundless heavenly prison, in the cracks of the few fragments of time, he didn't sense any trace of divine sense. Sometimes, Xiao Hua began to doubt whether his soul technique was useful in this heavenly prison, or whether he had drifted too far away in these 20,000 years, and his soul technique couldn't sense the divine sense mark of the Great Snow Mountain. After being disappointed, Xiao Hua looked at the traces of time passing through his body without setting off any ripples, and once again raised a question. What's going on with this Xiao's half-god body and the great god's aura in my body? Could it be that this Xiao had other opportunities? Also, I didn't use my divine sense to explore the first time fragments. Could it be that I have already missed the way back when I entered the heavenly prison? Withdrawing the soul technique, Xiao Hua withdrew his soul consciousness and divine sense from the time fragment. His divine sense had already been cut by 10% by the time fragment, but his soul consciousness didn't suffer too much damage under the protection of his divine sense. Just as Xiao Hua was about to withdraw his soul consciousness and nourish it, a strange aura came from the oval time fragment between the three rings of light not far away. Xiao Hua was a little lazy, allowing his body to slowly float by. He didn't release his divine sense or soul sense. However, when he was halfway through, Xiao Hua couldn't help but use his soul technique, releasing his divine sense and soul sense into this time fragment. Just as Xiao Hua's figure was about to float away, Xiao Hua's body suddenly shook violently. His face was filled with incomparable ecstasy, and he almost shouted, "Fellow Taoist Confucian cultivator, quickly activate the going south way north technique." Ah? Good. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua was surprised at first, then suddenly realized. Pooh! With a muffled sound, it was no longer soul strands gushing out from between Xiao Hua's eyebrows. Instead, it was a fountain of green seal characters that directly spurted out. Then, hundreds of soul strands almost instantly touched these 300 or so basic green seal characters. Wong wong. Another rumbling sound. After all the green seal characters were lit up by Xiao Hua's soul strands, these green seal characters suddenly flew crazily and combined together. In just a moment, a flickering strange fluctuation, a green seal character the size of a fist appeared in the darkness. After that green seal character appeared, it didn't stop rotating at all. With a hong sound, it began to rotate. Strands of black and white light flashed out from this green seal character. Under the black and white light, the tadpole-like green seal character began to roll, swell, and swim towards the depths of the time fragment. Then, an extremely distorted and incomplete transportation channel appeared in front of Xiao Hua. Because this transportation channel wasn't complete, it was filled with the power of space tearing. Moreover, the scattered fluctuations in the time fragment constantly attacked the channel. As if countless large hands were vigorously rubbing this channel, the distortion would change from time to time. Looking at this incomplete transportation channel, Xiao Hua's mouth revealed a smile. After all, this was a plan that he had been brewing countless times for more than 10,000 years. The formation of this transportation channel was more than 10 times faster than before. Although the channel wasn't complete and was abnormally distorted, Xiao Hua understood that everything in the time fragment was distorted by the power of time. Although it looked incomplete, it might not be incomplete on the inside. Therefore, he didn't hesitate at all and immediately took out the Grand Cosmos shifting token. The green light between his eyebrows shone brightly, enveloping his entire body. Then, within the light, tens of millions of soul strands fell onto the transportation channel. Buzz! Another thunderous rumble sounded. A layer of human-shaped fluctuations appeared around Xiao Hua's body. This fluctuation produced a strong adhesive force that prevented Xiao Hua from flying. Although Xiao Hua was now at the Grand Ascension stage, it was beyond his ability to resist the power of time. In the face of this situation, Xiao Hua, who had been comprehending the laws of time for more than 10,000 years, didn't panic. He knew that this was because he wanted to leave the time region. The time region produced a natural attractive force. Xiao Hua's body moved slightly, and he rubbed his hands. Although it was a lightning technique, there was no lightning or thunderbolt. Only some strange fluctuations appeared from his hands. Moreover, these fluctuations didn't spread in all directions, but rushed in one direction according to Xiao Hua's hand gesture. When the ripples fell within the ripples of the time zone, Xiao Hua's figure spun around, and the adhesive force toward the teleportation channel greatly increased. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the dark green light around Xiao Hua's body flashed, and his figure was actually pulled toward the teleportation channel by the adhesive force of the time zone. Haha! Seeing his body fall into the transportation channel as he wished, Xiao Hua laughed loudly. Although he often used the principle of borrowing force to exert force with his fists and feet, he couldn't help but feel proud that he could use such a simple technique to bully the powerful power of time. Now that Xiao Hua had entered the tunnel with the greater universe shifting writ, the tunnel, which had been collapsing, immediately stabilized. It was true that the Soul Cultivator's teleportation tunnel couldn't block out the endless ripples of time within the fragment of time, but the entire tunnel had been established. Countless green seal characters surged like tadpoles, and strange shapes and strange lights emerged from the black and white runes. Xiao Hua's body streaked across the murderous ripples as he flew deeper and deeper into the tunnel. Xiao Hua didn't have time to carefully investigate the situation of the transportation channel. He urged the Soul Scholar to connect the transportation channel with the vague divine sense mark in the time fragment. The divine sense mark was like a small lamp in a stormy sea and wasn't particularly obvious. Xiaohua even felt that this divine sense mark was somewhat unfamiliar and extremely weak. However, this divine sense mark was exactly the same as his own soul, so Xiaohua couldn't doubt it. Maybe it's because this Xiao floated in the heavenly prison for too long and is too far away from the snowy mountain in the western paradise. Xiaohua slightly closed his eyes and urged the soul technique to think. This divine sense mark is distorted in this time fragment, so this Xiaohua has this kind of feeling. However, this time fragment is too frightening. Almost every inch of the area has different time fluctuations. Apart from this Xiaohua, who has the body of a half-god and can survive in this time fragment, any other cultivator in the hidden immortal continent, I'm afraid they can't survive here for even half a moment, right? The time fragment, as the name implied, was the shattering of time. Just as Xiaohua perceived, every inch of the time law was different. The entire area was like fireflies rippling on the surface of water. Not only was the transportation channel shattered, even Xiaohua's own body was also shattered. A body bearing thousands of different time fragments, no immortal or mortal could survive. This was also the reason why no cultivator could escape from the heavenly prison. Xiaohua admittedly had a way to escape, but he also had a body soaked in primal chaos energy, so he could escape from the heavenly prison with the help of this unimaginable time fragment. Of course, if he could comprehend the time law in the heavenly prison, he could even more comprehend it in this time fragment. Xiaohua relied on the soul cultivator Xiaohua to urge the soul technique, and he took the time to comprehend the time law between the fragments. He clearly knew that this kind of opportunity would only come once in a lifetime. Of course, while Xiaohua was comprehending the time law, his heart was also hanging. After all, the divine sense mark of the snowy mountain was really too weak, and the transportation channel was only supported by this divine sense mark. Sometimes, when the divine sense mark was weak, Xiaohua's soul technique almost couldn't sense it, and he could only rely on a trace of his soul to maintain the transportation channel. Behind Xiaohua, the transportation channel had already collapsed, and Xiaohua had no way back. And this time fragment was different from the time region in the heavenly prison. If Xiaohua was trapped in this time fragment, he probably wouldn't even be able to cultivate. Just when Xiaohua was worried, Wang Wang, the transportation channel around Xiaohua suddenly issued a rumbling sound. The originally distorted black and white brilliance suddenly stopped, and at the same time, it emitted a brilliant brilliance. The surging green seal characters also seemed to have calmed down and started to move around the channel in an orderly manner. Good. Xiaohua clapped his hands in joy because the time fragment surrounding him suddenly disappeared, and his comprehension also came to an abrupt end. At this time, how could he not know that he had already left the time fragment? -13. Chapter 4079. Unfortunately, without waiting for his two palms to hit each other, boom, the entire transmission channel once again issued a huge explosion sound. Ouch, not good. The soul cultivator Xiaohua, who was doing his best to urge his soul technique, cried out in alarm. Our divine sense mark has disappeared. I can't sense it at all. How is this possible? Didn't we already escape from the heavenly prison? Xiaohua, who had just experienced extreme misfortune, instantly felt his heart turn cold. Just now, inside the time fragment, although the divine sense mark was weak, he could still find it. Why was it that after leaving the time fragment and reaching a safe place, the divine sense mark actually disappeared? Unfortunately, at this time, Xiaohua didn't have time to think about it. The transmission channel that was originally set up in front of him collapsed with a rumbling sound. Within the black and white brilliance, the malevolent fangs of the power of space were revealed. Seeing this, Xiaohua suddenly had a familiar feeling. An unimaginable thought emerged in his mind. Could it be that I also experienced the collapse of a transmission channel before? Of course, the current Xiaohua was no longer an ignorant person. His whole body flashed with a dark green brilliance, and countless soul threads were released, supporting the transmission channel several hundred zhang in front of him. Then, he rubbed his hands together, and a thick crystal light fell in the surrounding air. In an instant, a huge ball of lightning formed a huge sphere to protect the transmission channel. Kacha. Outside the lightning, the sound of explosions could be heard all the time. Beads of sweat gradually appeared on Xiao Hua's forehead. After all, contending against the power of heaven and earth with one person's strength was not something an ordinary cultivator could withstand. Under Xiao Hua's protection, the transmission channel still moved somewhat disorderly in the void. Xiao Hua was already powerless to control its direction. Moreover, Xiao Hua also didn't know where the Elysium was. Boom! A deafening explosion rang out after half a cup of tea's time. The space within a radius of several hundred miles shook violently. Amidst the tremors, Xiao Hua flew out with lightning. At this moment, the void was torn apart and shattered. Rays of light and shadow flashed in front of Xiao Hua's eyes. Xiao Hua seemed to see a huge starry sky. He saw an azure star that looked like a broken sphere. On one side of this azure star, there was a thick blood mist shrouding it. Woo! A strange wave came from afar. Before Xiao Hua could react, the green light around his body naturally followed the wave and extended out soul strands. That lightning even shattered the void. Xiao Hua's figure was actually pulled into the strange wave. Then, a huge teleportation force came from all directions and landed on Xiao Hua's body. This is a teleportation array. Xiao Hua was stunned for a moment before he suddenly came to a realization. Even though this Xiao's teleportation channel exploded, but it just so happened that someone activated the teleportation channel and passed by this place. This Xiao's body still has the ripples of the teleportation channel, and this ripple was attracted by the ripples of the teleportation channel, and sent this Xiao into this teleportation channel. Damn it! This Xiao's luck is really unparalleled in the world. I can finally return to hidden immortal continent. The pressure inside the teleportation channel was extremely great. Xiao Hua's entire body flickered with lightning. Moreover, because of Xiao Hua's sudden addition, the entire teleportation channel gave birth to a strong repulsive force. The teleportation channel was also somewhat distorted. However, this kind of mutation was as easy as flipping his hand for Xiao Hua, who was proficient in the art of going in the opposite direction. A few green seal characters fell into the teleportation channel between Xiao Hua's eyebrows, and the entire teleportation channel immediately stabilized. After no less than half a cup of tea's time, the pressure on the teleportation channel began to gradually lessen. This must be the ancient teleportation channel left behind by the Elysium world. Xiao Hua knew that the teleportation channel was about to end. He couldn't help but become somewhat pensive. No matter if it's Daybreak Continent or Hidden Immortal Continent, there doesn't seem to be such a long-distance teleportation channel. Swoosh! Seemingly a white light flashed. Xiao Hua's figure suddenly sank. His feet landed on the ground, and he sensed that kind of solidity coming from the ground. Xiao Hua's tears almost flowed out from his eyes. He had been wandering in the heavenly prison for 20,000 years. When did he have this kind of solid feeling? Moreover, when Xiao Hua breathed through his mouth and nose, the heaven and earth origin energy that was close to that of a blessed land's heavenly passage swarmed in, making Xiao Hua unable to adapt. Senior brother, quickly save me. Without waiting for the dizziness in Xiao Hua's mind to disappear, a woman's delicate voice sounded in Xiao Hua's ear. Xiao Hua slightly shook his head. His head was still dizzy. The effect of the teleportation channel had not been eliminated. Although it was not to the extent where the sky and earth were spinning, he was still unable to think normally. Xiao Hua could clearly see that in front of him was actually not a teleportation channel, but an enormous mountain range. The mountain range was filled with huge rocks of different sizes. The left side of the huge rocks was filled with bloodstains. In the bloodstains, some magic weapons and bones were discarded. The magic weapons had all lost their brilliance. The bones did not have any flesh. In the sky above the bloodstains, a petite woman wearing an emerald green dress was holding a whip in her hand, blocking left and right. The clothes on the woman's body seemed to be a protective magic weapon, emitting a dark green brilliance. This brilliance was like a cold flower that protected her entire body. Around her, several monsters covered in pitch-black scales flapped their wings that were tens of zhang in size, tightly surrounding her. However, in this encirclement, there was only one monster with a similar figure to this woman, but it was also covered in scales. It was spitting out pitch-black flames from its mouth as it fought with this woman. The woman's body also had some scars that dyed her emerald green dress red. As the woman waved her whip, it was like a raging wave of whip shadows pouncing out. Those layers of heaven and earth origin energy turned into wind blades that crazily chopped towards the monster in front of her. However, these whip shadows were reduced to ashes in the flames. When the wind blades landed on the monster's scales, they only produced sparks. They were unable to cause too much damage to the monster. When the woman saw Xiaohua, her eyes were filled with ecstasy as she hurriedly shouted. When this woman's voice came out, it naturally attracted the attention of many monsters. They all turned their heads to look at Xiaohua. Senior brother? Xiaohua was shocked. He hurriedly looked down at his arm and asked curiously, Miss, when did I become your senior brother? Brother. At this moment, from under Xiaohua's feet, a low voice sounded. This uninvited brother, I am her senior brother. Xiaohua looked down and then hurriedly jumped to the side. He bowed and said, Sorry. It was all my carelessness. I apologize to you, brother. The place where Xiaohua was previously standing was a middle-aged man wearing a Taoist robe. Xiaohua had stepped on him between the huge rocks. At this moment, the man's bruised and swollen face poked out from the crack in the rock with difficulty. He raised his similarly bloody arm and pointed his index finger at his nose that had a corner cut off. Roar! Without waiting for the man to speak, the several monsters surrounding the woman roared. As if they had a tacit understanding, they spread their wings and surrounded Xiaohua and the man in the middle. Huff! At the same time, several black flames mixed with black smoke rushed towards Xiaohua. Brother, be careful, the man said. A red brilliance sprayed out from his mouth. A small sword flashed with flames and stabbed towards one of the monsters. When did the hidden immortal continent have Taoist cultivators? Xiaohua was slightly surprised, but he laughed and said, Hee, no need to worry. It's just a few monsters. Watch this Xiao's method. As he spoke, Xiaohua waved his hands. Rumble. Huge thunderous sounds came from his hands. Several bolts of lightning that were even more arrogant than a huge sword appeared and landed on the bodies of several monsters. Clang. The man's flying sword landed on the monster's body first. Sparks splashed out from the monster's scales. Soon after, the flying sword ruthlessly pierced into the monster's body. Xiaohua's thunderbolt came down with a loud bang. Roar! Several monsters only let out half a scream before they were turned into powder under the thunderbolt. The man who was about to fly out from the crack in the rock was dumbstruck. The woman who had been paying attention to this place was also stunned. It was also at this moment that the monster spread its wings. The tail with sharp thorns pierced through the dark green brilliance and landed in front of the woman's soft breasts. The woman woke up, but everything was too late. The pitch-black tail dripping with pus was already less than 3 inches away from her heart. The woman's beautiful face turned pale, but in the blink of an eye, she felt a sudden warmth at her waist. Then, her body strangely retreated. She watched as the tail of the monster suddenly moved away. Then, there was another bright flash of lightning. The monster was reduced to ashes in the flash of lightning. Everything seemed like an indescribable dream. However, at this moment, a breath that was like sunlight filled the tip of her nose, causing her heart to abruptly jump, and her pretty face abruptly heated up. Miss, Xiaohua's gentle voice sounded. Are you okay? The woman woke up and hurriedly struggled from Xiaohua's embrace. She bowed and said, Thank you, Senior, for saving me. Junior is fine. Hee, that's good. Xiaohua pinched his chin. He looked to the left and said with a smile, Is this hidden immortal continent or pure land? Which sector you disciples of? This Xiao hasn't returned to the 3 continents for a long time. It's really unfamiliar. Hidden immortal continent? Pure land? 3 continents? The woman pursed her lips and smiled. She replied, Seems like Senior's transfer array is also wrong. This is not the 3 continents Senior wants to go to. This is the ruins. Junior's name is Yuming Xin, a disciple of fragrant religion. Boom. Yu Ming Xian's words hit Xiaohua like a thunderbolt. He looked around in disbelief and released his divine sense. Woo! A huge wind whistled around Yu Ming Xian. Yu Ming Xian looked at Xiaohua in surprise. An indescribable pressure slowly spread out from Xiaohua's body. At the same time, Yu Ming Xian did his best to resist this pressure. At the same time, Yu Ming Xian's reverence for Xiaohua increased. The man in the distance had just jumped out from the crack in the rock. Before he could fly over, he was also shocked by Xiaohua's divine sense hurricane and pressure. He didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He stood there respectfully and quietly waited. -13. Chapter 4080. After half a cup of tea's time, Xiaohua retracted his divine sense. A strange expression appeared on his face as he looked at Yu Mingxin and said with a smile, "Since this is not the three continents, why are your words?" However, Xiaohua only spoke half a sentence before he was stunned. When he saw Yu Mingxin and heard what he said, he was ecstatic. Moreover, his head was dizzy, so he didn't care and casually answered. However, at this moment, he suddenly realized that the words spoken by Yu Mingxin and that middle-aged man were not the language of the hidden immortal continent or the Western Paradise. They were also not the language of the Dawn Rain continent. However, these words seemed to be engraved in Xiaohua's heart. Xiaohua couldn't help but say it out loud. "What's wrong with Junior's words?" Yu Mingxin blinked his bright eyes and looked at Xiaohua strangely. The way he tilted his head was very cute. "Where's this place?" Xiaohua panicked. "Have you heard of Lu Town? Have you heard of Western Paradise, Hidden Immortal Continent, Dawn Rain Continent, or Thousand Demons Sacred Realm?" "Senior, what you said is very strange. I don't think there's such a name in my cultivation world." Yu Mingxin thought for a while and shook his head. "The place Junior is at is called the Ruins. It's a remote corner of the cultivation world. Or perhaps the place Senior wants to go is somewhere else. However, if Senior wants to leave the Ruins, it's a bit troublesome now." That man respectfully flew over and bowed. "Junior Yu Changming of the Incense Cult greets Senior." "N.I. Xiaohua, you can call me Daoist Xiao." Xiaohua said to Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming absent-mindedly, "Why can't I leave the Ruins?" "Yes, Daoist Xiao." Yu Mingxin's eyes lit up as he explained, "Daoist Xiao, you should know that the Ruins is a small corner of the cultivation world. It doesn't have many transfer arrays to other places in the cultivation world. Usually, it's very peaceful. However, hundreds of years ago, for some unknown reason, there was a problem with the transportation formation that led to the outside world. Not only could it not be transported out, but people from the devil world also suddenly appeared in the Ruins. Now, the Ruins are surrounded by the devil dwellers. The three major sects and hundreds of small sects in the Ruins are trying their best to defend against the devil dwellers. Although the Immortals' dermic powers are great, it won't be easy for you to leave immediately. The reason why Daoist Master Xiao was able to come here with me was because of the deviation in the transmission array around the Ruins." Yu Changming hurriedly explained. "Cultivation world. Ruins." Xiaohua pinched his chin as he thought to himself, "Since this place isn't one of the three continents, nor is it the Daybreak continent, then there must be a problem with this Xiao's transportation channel, causing it to deviate in direction and be transported here. Maybe it's because I've been drifting in the heavenly prison for too long. Even though I've only been in the world's edge for 20,000 years, maybe I've been in the hidden immortal continent for 1,000,000 years. Everything has changed. Of course, even if millions of years pass and people and things change, the three continents won't change, right? Could it be that even the three continents have changed? If that's the case, then I can only say that I've been transported to the wrong place. But the divine sense mark that I sensed in the heavenly prison was the divine sense mark on the Great Snow Mountain. It was personally marked by me. How did I get transported here?" Daoist Master Xiao? Seeing Xiaohua's strange expression, Yu Ming Xian probed. "There's an ancient saying that goes with the flow. Since Daoist Master Xiao is already here, why don't you wait and see? Perhaps it won't be long before the transmission array in the Ruins is repaired. At that time, it won't be too late for Daoist Master to leave." That's right. Yu Changming also agreed. Taoist Master Zhao's methods are exceedingly high. Now that my ruins is being attacked by the devil dwellers, if Taoist Master can lend a hand, my Chuanxiang school, Misty School, and Xindao sect will definitely be endlessly grateful. Misty School? Xiao Hua stared blankly and asked curiously, "There's a Misty School in the ruins?" "That's right." Yuming Xin felt a bit strange and hurriedly replied, "Not only is there a Misty School in the ruins, there's also a Xindao sect. That Xindao sect is a branch of the famous Tai Bai sect in the cultivation world." Tai Bai sect? Xiaohua slightly shook his head. "Never heard of it. But I've heard of Misty School." Hee, Taoist master must be joking. Yuming Xin pursed her lips and smiled, revealing two small dimples and said, "Misty School is a sect in the ruins. Even though it's one of the three major sects in the ruins, how can it be compared to Tai Bai sect? Xindao sect is only a branch of Tai Bai sect, but it can be compared to Misty School. No matter how famous Tai Bai sect is, what does it have to do with me?" Xiaohua smiled. "I've never heard of it, so I've never heard of it." Xiaohua's words caused Yuming Xin and Yu Changming to stare blankly. After all, even though Xiaohua's words revealed a kind of arrogance, but, in reality, he was belittling Tai Bai sect. Perhaps brainless people would see Xiaohua in a new light, but Yuming Xin and Yu Changming both knew of Tai Bai sect's power, so they could only have doubts in their hearts. The two exchanged glances and Yuming Xin asked probingly, "Taoist Master Xiao, you've really never heard of Tai Bai sect?" "Indeed," Xiaohua nodded and asked curiously, "Could it be that Tai Bai sect is especially famous?" Yuming Xin smiled bitterly and asked again, "Then, where did Taoist Master Xiao come from?" "Three continents." Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and looked at the two's reaction and replied, "You two probably haven't heard of it." "Indeed." Yuming Xin nodded. Junior has indeed never heard of the name of this outside world. Of course, if Senior came from outside the cultivation world, it's normal that you haven't heard of Tai Bai sect. However, Tai Bai sect and Kunlun sect are the two biggest cultivation sects in our cultivation world. Not only do they occupy a star field by themselves, they also spread their power to many star fields. If Senior wants to return to the three continents, I'm afraid you'll have to form a good relationship with either Tai Bai sect or Kunlun sect. Kunlun sect? Xiaohua was startled. He couldn't help but recall that when he was in the Dawn Rain continent, someone once warned him that although the Dawn Rain continent's Kunlun sect wasn't particularly powerful, it was one of the most profound cultivation sects in the Dawn Rain continent. However, thinking about what Yuming Xin said and the surrounding situation, Xiaohua also knew that this Kunlun sect was definitely not the same Kunlun sect. After thinking for a while, Xiaohua asked again, "Outside world? Apart from the cultivation world, what other world do you know?" "This." Yuming Xin hesitated for a moment and said with a smile, "Junior's cultivation is shallow and the sect has strict orders. Without reaching the void refinement stage, Junior can't get involved in these outside world matters. Junior has only heard some rumors. It can't be considered true." Yu Changming smiled and said, "If Taoist Xiao wants to know more, then please follow me back to the Fragrant Sect's mountain gate. Junior will ask the sect's senior to clear up your doubts." "That's right." Yuming Xin also echoed, "Senior's matter of returning to the three continents. I'm afraid only the sect's senior can help. Senior, why don't you follow me back to the mountain gate?" "Is the Misty School's mountain gate the same as your Fragrant Sect's mountain gate?" Xiaohua didn't directly answer, but asked back. Yu Changming didn't dare to hide. He shook his head and said, "My Fragrant Sect's mountain gate is in the Seven Mountain Range. The Misty School is in Ping River. The distance is very far." Yuming Xin hurriedly said, "Senior, if you want to go to the Misty School, Junior can lead the way for you." Xiaohua really wanted to go to the Misty School to see if the Misty School was the Misty School in his memory. However, when he heard the names of the Seven Mountain Range and Ping River, he didn't have any reaction in his mind. Naturally, he also knew that this Misty School might not be the Misty School he was looking for. Moreover, the devil race was currently besieging the ruins. If he rashly went to the Misty School, it might cause some misunderstandings. Therefore, he thought for a moment and said with a smile, "Now that the devil race is rampant, you might encounter some danger on the way back to the sect." This Xiao will send you back to the 7-mountain range first. Yuming Xian smiled sweetly and bowed. Thank you, senior. However, in the next moment, her face became sad again. She looked around and said, if only senior had come earlier. Hearing this, Yu Changming also felt sad. He raised his hand and said, Senior, please wait for a moment. Junior and Junior will clean up these corpses. There is a transmission array of my fragrant religion in the tribute wasteland. Junior will bring Senior there in a moment. Okay. Xiaohua nodded and looked around. He said, you can clean it up. The dead should be respected. They are disciples of the fragrant religion. They also died in battle to protect the ruins. Their corpses should be brought back. Senior should know. Yuming Xian explained in a low voice, they are not disciples of the fragrant religion. They are just disciples of other sects who were in the same group as Junior. And then we should bring their corpses back and send them to their sect. Let their souls rest in peace. Xiaohua sighed. At this moment, Buddha Bodhi in the Naiwan Palace suddenly said, Tanyu, there is something strange here. Oh? Xiaohua was surprised. He waved his hand at Yuming Xian and Yu Changming, hinting them to clean up the corpses. His figure flashed, and he turned into a rainbow and flew into the sky. He then asked, Little monk, what did you find? Tanyu, Buddha Bodhi said, this poor monk found a lot of souls nearby. They seem to be the souls of the cultivators who just died. There are even some who died before. In an ordinary place, souls would immediately enter the 6 paths of reincarnation. However, these souls seem to be imprisoned here and can't leave. Therefore, a lot of wandering souls have gathered. Hiss! Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. He slapped his forehead and opened his delirium eyes. Sure enough, on the ground and in the air nearby, there were a few fine green patterns drifting about. They were ownerless wandering souls. These wandering souls were either complete or incomplete. There were more than what Buddha Bodhi said. What is going on? These souls can't return to the 9 underworlds? Xiaohua was a bit confused. He looked at Yuming Xian and Yu Changming, who were focused on cleaning up the corpses. He knew that the two of them knew very little. Even if he asked, they might not know. -13. Chapter 4081. These wandering souls need to be dealt with immediately. Buddha Bodhi said, either this poor monk reincarnates them, or Tenyu takes them into the space. Let this Xiao do it. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, since these wandering souls can't return to the 9 underworlds, even if you use the Buddhist mantra, it might not be effective. The population of our space has reached the limit. We need these wandering souls to replenish it. Namo Mithreya Buddha, Buddha Bodhi chanted and said, let's do as Tanyu says. Woo! Xiaohua released his mind and activated the spiritual energy of the underworld. Winds and clouds surged within 10,000 miles, and the wandering souls were all taken into the space by Xiaohua. Yuming Xin. Xiaohua transmitted, wait here for this old man for a moment. Senior. Yuming Xin looked up in surprise. Seeing Xiaohua waving his hand, she hurriedly transmitted, there are a lot of tribute wastelands. Unfortunately, before she could finish speaking, Xiaohua's figure moved slightly, and he'd already vanished from where he stood. Seeing Xiaohua teleport away, Yuming Xin's heart felt empty for no reason. However, she shook her head slightly and carefully cleaned up the corpses on the ground. In fact, under normal circumstances, the cultivators of the ruins would use their magic power to store the corpses of the devil cultivator into their Sumera ring. However, after hearing Xiaohua's solemn words, Yuming Xin and Yu Changming did not dare to be negligent and personally cleaned them up. After the two finished cleaning up, they looked up at the sky and released their divine sense. Unfortunately, there was no trace of Xiaohua within 100 kilometers. Yu Changming asked worriedly, Junior sister, do you think Senior Xiao has left? Yuming Xin smiled and replied, although this is the first time I saw Senior Xiao, from his words and actions, I feel that he is a trustworthy person. He won't leave without saying goodbye. In fact, the most important thing is that Senior Zhao's spiritual power is unfathomable. If he wants to leave, we can't stop him. Since he promised to go with us to the 7 Ridge Mountains, he will definitely go. Of course I understand, Yu Changming said with a wry smile. However, there is nothing special around the tribute wastelands. Why would he go elsewhere? I don't know. Yu Mingxin shrunk his neck slightly, looked at the gradually setting sun, and said, Senior Shao wants us to wait, then let's wait. The two of them waited for several hours. Seeing that the moon was bright and the stars were sparse, Xiao Hua appeared in front of them. Senior. Seeing Xiao Hua's figure appear from the void, Yu Mingxin called out with a smile, Senior. Yu Changming hastily followed Yu Mingxian and bowed. Senior is back. And Xiao Hua agreed. He raised his head and looked at the unfamiliar star chart in the night sky. Earlier, when the stars were shining, Xiao Hua had already observed it. The star chart here was different from the morning rain continent and the hidden immortal continent. This ruins was definitely not the hidden immortal continent. The time fragment that he was worried about didn't bring him to the hidden immortal continent that was very, very far in the future. Where did Senior go? Yu Mingxin's bright eyes moved, and said with some concern, Devil dwellers occasionally appear around the tribute wastelands. Hee. Xiao Hua laughed, raised his hand and took out 2 devil dwellers from the space, and said, Previously, this old man thought that they were monsters. But after hearing you say that they were devil dwellers, this old man felt very strange. Because these devil dwellers were different from what this old man saw, this old man went to capture a few to see. Senior. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming were stunned. There were countless experts in the ruins, and there were also many capable people who could kill devil dwellers. However, to capture devil dwellers as easily as Xiao Hua, there weren't many. At least, the two of them had never seen such a thing. I'll give them to you. Xiao Hua waved his hand, and the 2 devil dwellers fell in front of the 2 of them. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming understood Xiao Hua's intention and were even more ecstatic. They both stretched out their hand and activated a ring on their finger, collecting the devil dwellers, and then bowed and said, Many thanks, Senior Xiao. You're welcome. Xiao Hua looked at the rings on the 2's hand and said with a smile, Is this a universe ring? Oh, this is a Sumera ring. Yu Mingxin knew that Xiao Hua wasn't a cultivator of the cultivation world and didn't know that the ring on her hand was a Sumera ring, so she hurriedly explained. Moreover, she was very lucky and took out a slightly exquisite Sumera ring from her bosom and handed it to Xiao Hua, saying, Senior, this is Junior's Tongxi ring. The space inside is much larger than the Star Lake ring on Junior's hand. If Senior doesn't mind, please kindly accept it. This? Xiao Hua smiled. His space was now several million miles away, and he didn't know how much larger it was than a Sumera ring. How could he use a Sumera ring? He waved his hand and said, No need. This old man has his own universe ring and other things. I don't need this Sumera ring. Yu Mingxin didn't take back the Sumera ring and still insisted, Senior saved Junior's life. This Junior has nothing to repay. Just take this Tongxi ring as Junior's thanks. Haha, good. Xiao Hua saw Yu Mingxin's insistence and raised his hand to take the Sumera ring into his bosom. He waved his hand and took out 10 dragon crystals, saying, This old man doesn't have anything particularly precious. These are dragon crystals. I don't know if the ruins have them, but I'll give them to you as a plaything. The dragon crystal was very strange. In the stacked jade Forgotten Realm, it was a crystal, but in this place, it was shining brightly. Moreover, there was a crystal-clear dragon shape that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws in the light. What was special was that it was night, so the light was even more obvious. Dragon crystals? Seeing the 10 dragon crystals were like 10 little dragons dancing in the air, Yu Mingxin's eyes immediately lit up. She covered her mouth with her hand in surprise and said in surprise, This is the legendary dragon crystals of the dragon world? It's really too beautiful. Not to mention Yu Mingxin was surprised. Even Yu Changming's eyes were filled with envy. Xiao Hua's heart moved, and he asked Yu Changming with a smile, Is the dragon world near the cultivation world? I'll let Senior Xiao know. Yu Changming retracted his gaze and respectfully replied, The dragon world is very far from the cultivation world, and it is said that the barrier between the dragon world and the other worlds is very strange. Besides the dragon race, other races can enter at will. Therefore, the dragon crystals rarely flow out. Xiaohua frowned and said, "This old man knows of a dragon realm, but I don't know if this dragon world is the dragon realm." This? Yu Changming shook his head awkwardly. This junior doesn't know. This junior has never heard of the dragon realm. Hee. Daoist Xiao. Yu Mingxin came back to her senses and put the 10 dragon crystals into her Sumera ring and said with a smile, "This junior seems to have heard of the dragon realm." "Oh, is that so?" Xiaohua was overjoyed and asked, "Tell me about it." This junior. Yu Mingxin looked at Yu Changming and said with some embarrassment, "More than 10 years ago, when I was on duty at the Bright Palace, I occasionally heard the sect master and the other seniors talk about a few words, and there seemed to be a dragon realm inside." Of course, this junior didn't hear it clearly. Maybe the dragon realm and the dragon realm that senior is talking about are not the same. That dragon realm should be one of the lower realms of the dragon world. Of course, what the other lower realms are, this junior doesn't know. See, Xiaohua couldn't help but be shocked. In the eyes of the Dragon Island, the dragon realm is the upper realm, and in the eyes of the dragon world, the dragon realm is the lower realm. What's more, this cultivation world is on the same level as the dragon world. Then, what realm is this cultivation world? Xiaohua was completely confused. "Senior," Yu Mingxin said in a low voice, "this is something that this junior occasionally heard. It can't be taken seriously. Moreover, there are countless worlds outside the cultivation world. It's not strange to have 1 or 2 people with the same name." Xiaohua took a deep breath and said, "Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Let's go back to the 7 Ridge Mountains first." "Yes, senior." Yu Changming said respectfully, "Senior, please follow this junior." "Oh, these 2 dragon crystals are also for you." Xiaohua nodded and handed the 2 dragon crystals to Yu Changming. "Many thanks, senior." Yu Changming hastily received the dragon crystals and happily said, then led Xiaohua to the transmission array. The transmission array of Fragrance Religion was located on top of a mountain peak, and it was only a few dozen li away from here. Xiaohua had already discovered it when he released his divine sense. Before flying to the mountain peak, Xiaohua had already learned from Yu Mingxin that the devil race had really set up a trap here. They had killed a group of 10 people, and only Yu Mingxin was left alive, so that the disciples of Fragrance Religion would come to rescue him. Unfortunately, Yu Mingxin had sent a message early and didn't clearly explain the dangers of this place. When Yu Changming received the message, he anxiously rushed over and didn't inform his fellow disciples. If it weren't for Xiaohua accidentally bumping into his transmission channel, not to mention rescuing Yu Mingxin, even Yu Changming himself would have been trapped in this wasteland. Yu Changming took out a long jade pendant from his Sumera ring, which was engraved with ancient symbols. As Yu Changming chanted, the surrounding heaven and earth origin qi gradually gathered. Then, Yu Changming's hands formed a seal, and the jade pendant turned into a fist-sized halo that fell into the array. Boom! The array was activated, and a burst of light and shadow flashed, like a blooming daisy, and 100 zhang-wide transmission array appeared in front of Xiaohua and the others, exuding obscure fluctuations. Xiaohua had been paying attention to Yu Changming's spellcasting, and saw that the magic power fluctuations were similar to what he knew, but the spellcasting was completely different. Of course, the power of this spell seemed to be stronger than that of the Dawn Rain continent. Daoist Xiao. Yu Mingxin saw the transmission array appear and said with a smile, if Daoist Xiao hadn't mistakenly entered Senior Brother Changming's transmission channel, Senior Brother Changming should have come out from here. Didn't this Xiao come here to save you? Xiaohua blinked his eyes and looked at Yu Mingxin. He didn't know if it was intentional or not, but he replied with a smile, if this Xiao fell here, wouldn't there be no way to save you? -13. Chapter 4082. Hee, that's right. Yu Mingxin smiled faintly and was about to say something when the moonlight in the sky suddenly shone brightly. An extremely obscure and broad wave of energy swept across the night sky. In the air, an inexplicable cloud appeared, and the originally dense heaven and earth yuan qi became even denser. At this time, Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming's faces turned serious. They stopped activating the teleportation formation and put their hands in front of their chests to greet the moon. When Xiaohua saw the two acting so respectfully and the strange movements of their hands, He knew that this was some kind of ritual. Hence, his figure flashed and retreated several dozen feet. When the fluctuation fell on Xiao Hua's body, the spirit of the formless nascent soul shook. The cultivation art in his body was activated, and the nebula-like core was immediately filled with bright moonlight. Oh! Xiao Hua frowned. He was a little surprised and a little happy. After the time it took to finish a meal, the two of them stood up. Yu Changming went to activate the teleportation formation while Yu Ming Xian said with a smile, "I'll let you know that this is the moon's sacrifice of our ruins. Normally, it happens once a month. However, there are some abnormalities with the invasion of the devil race. Sometimes it takes half a month, sometimes it takes 2 months." What is moon sacrifice? Xiao Hua looked at Yu Changming carefully, taking out the origin stones and putting them on the teleportation formation. His movements were jerky, and he knew that activating the teleportation formation would take some time. Seeing that Xiao Hua didn't have any reaction to the moon, Yu Mingxin naturally knew that Xiao Hua didn't know what moon sacrifice was. However, she still probed. There is a moon palace in the moon god realm. Everything in the moon god realm, including the heaven and earth origin energy, is bestowed by the moon palace. The people of the moon god realm naturally have to worship the moon palace? Could it be that spiritual master Zhao's 3 continents don't worship the moon palace? Xiao Hua shook his head slightly and replied, "Although our 3 continents have moon essence, I have never heard of the moon god realm. Spiritual master Xiao, could it be that you came from outside the realm?" Yu Mingxin was a little dumbfounded. This junior has never heard of the realm outside the moon palace, even if there are other realms nearby. Speaking until here, Yu Mingxin was shocked. She looked at Yu Changming, who was setting up the teleportation formation, and hurriedly sent a sound transmission. "Senior Xiao, you better not say that you came from outside the realm. Also, don't say that you don't know of the moon god realm." "Why?" Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. Yu Mingxin bit her lips slightly as she sent a sound transmission to Yun Che. "Senior, please know that the moon god realm is commonly known as the cultivation world in the mouths of us disciples. In my moon god realm, all cultivators must worship the moon palace. The purpose of this junior's cultivation is also to enter the moon palace. Anyone who doesn't respect the moon palace will be seen as an alien, just like the devil race. Senior, you are a kind person. Although you don't know about the moon palace, you are still part of our Tao sect. Therefore, it is best to avoid any misunderstandings." See, Xiao Hua couldn't remember how many times he had sucked in a breath of cold air. Previously, when he was doubtful, he faintly felt that something was wrong, but at that time, he didn't know what it was. Only now did he realize it. The Taoist cultivators of the hidden immortal continent ascended to the immortal world. The dragons of the Dragon Island broke through the void and arrived at the Dragon Field. If this world of cultivation was higher than the Dragon Field, then how could these Taoist cultivators ascend? Where are they going? Now, Yu Mingxin said what Xiao Hua wanted to know. The Moon Palace was actually the place where the cultivators of the cultivation world, the ruins, ascended. This was definitely a subversion of Xiao Hua's understanding. Sigh. Just as Xiao Hua was about to open his mouth again, Yu Mingxin raised his eyes to look at the moon and said with a sorrowful tone, "It's a pity that our ruins is a remote corner of the cultivation world. It has already been a long time since the Moon Palace's emissary came to select disciples. In these millions of years, many seniors went to other places and many sects were destroyed. Otherwise, when the devil race invaded, we wouldn't have fallen into such a sorry state." Xiao Hua somewhat understood. Perhaps there was a convenient way to reach the Moon Palace in the cultivation world. However, this way was man-made. If no one came to select disciples, this way would be closed. It was not as good as the hidden immortal continent. As long as one cultivated, as long as one had enough strength, they would be able to ascend. There was no need to look at the faces of those people, nor did they need to rely on the charity of others. Senior, Yu Changming had already finished setting up the transfer array. He flew over and said respectfully, "The transfer array is ready. Senior, please enter the transfer array. Junior will activate the array." Xiao Hua nodded and entered the teleportation array. After that, Yu Ming Xian and Yu Changming chanted incantations at the same time and formed hand seals. A fist-sized rune appeared in the teleportation array, and a black and white pillar of light shot up into the sky. The three of them disappeared from the teleportation array, leaving behind only the light of the teleportation array. Then, the teleportation array slowly came to a stop. Inside the transfer array, the spatial pressure was very strong. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming's body flashed with a faint brilliance, blocking the pressure. The three figures in the transfer array were slightly distorted. Xiaohua tried to open his mouth, but his voice seemed to be dragged out. It was somewhat similar to the heavenly prison. After the time it took to eat a meal, Xiaohua felt the pressure on his body gradually lessen. He knew that the transfer array was about to end. He didn't ask how far the wasteland was from the fragrance cult, but it definitely didn't seem close. Boom! Just as the three figures became clear, the entire transfer array suddenly trembled. Then, the rotating black and white brilliance suddenly exploded. Yu Changming was shocked. When the brilliance cracked, a strong black flame rushed out from the crack. Then, a black devil claw stretched out. The devil claw was 10 feet long and had 6 pitch-black fingers. Each finger was wrapped in black flames, and each finger had a strange, innate devil pattern. When the devil claw reached out, the space around Yu Changming was enveloped by the black flames. He couldn't use his magic power at all. Even under Yu Changming's robe, a faint yellow brilliance flashed. Then, there was a burst of sound. It seemed like his personal defensive treasure was broken. Yu Changming's complexion changed. Ka. At this critical moment, an iron rod blocked the devil claw. The huge force not only dispersed the black flames, but also crushed the 2 fingers of the devil claw. Ayo! A clear roar came from outside the transfer array. It faintly entered Yu Changming's ears. Then, the devil claw suddenly retracted. But when it retracted to the edge of the transfer array, another devil claw fell down. Rumble. It sounded like a boulder rolling down the mountain. The transfer array was actually torn apart by the devil claw. Xiaohua and the others felt the space around them shake. The black and white brilliance disappeared, and the transfer array also turned into fragments. Xiaohua felt a little dizzy, but at this moment, he could clearly see that because of the sneak attack of the devils, they weren't sent to the real transfer array. At this time, the three of them were in midair. In addition to the three of them, there was another demon in the air that looked similar to the one they had killed in the wasteland. However, this demon was several times larger than the one they had killed in the wasteland. Moreover, this demon looked somewhat similar to the human race. When he looked around again, he saw balls of black and white light emerging in midair. Taoist cultivators either escaped from the light or had their limbs severed. Around the black and white light, there were 1 or 2 devils spreading their pitch-black wings. Their fiendish claws that flickered with black flames were plunged into the light. Not only that, in mid-air, there was a huge lotus-like mountain. In the middle of the mountain, there was a huge transfer array. Around the mountain, there were dozens of smaller transfer arrays. At this time, the transfer arrays were slightly rotating and issuing a rumbling sound. Around the transfer array, there were hundreds of cultivators of the Tao sect. Each of them was holding a magic weapon and fighting against the devils. The devils outnumbered the humans, and their methods were much more cruel. The whole mountain was filled with blood qi, and shouts of killing shook the sky. Roar! Just as Xiaohua saw everything in front of him, the devil in front of them roared angrily. Black flames madly rushed out of its wings. The flame threads in the black flames passed through the void and completely enveloped Xiaohua and the other two. It was like a kind of domain power that imprisoned the space. Oh, it's a little strange. Xiaohua had cultivated the devil arts of the blood-drop paradise. Naturally, he was very familiar with the cultivation methods of the devil race. However, seeing the somewhat mutated black flames and the formidable power of the black flames, he was slightly startled. Under the black flames, not to mention Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming, even Xiaohua's true essence was forcibly imprisoned. He couldn't activate it at all. Moreover, just as this imprisonment was formed, the devil swung its tail. An incomparably sharp spike with the smell of blood unexpectedly emerged from the void behind Xiaohua and strangely pierced towards the back of Xiaohua's head. Xiaohua muttered in his heart. He heard Yu Mingxin's miserable cry, "Taoist Xiao, be careful. Xiaohua slightly turned his head and said with a smile, Miss Mingxin, don't be afraid. I am here. Seeing Xiaohua smile, Yu Mingxin's heart relaxed for no reason. Looking at Xiaohua again, as he spoke, several thumb-sized thunderbolts emerged from his hand and struck the devil's tail. Lightning flickered and the spike was unexpectedly torn apart. Even the lightning didn't stop and rushed towards the void. Wherever the lightning passed, the void was also torn apart. Previously in the transfer array, Xiaohua didn't dare to use the lightning technique for fear of destroying the transfer array. But in midair, Xiaohua naturally didn't have any more taboos. Puff! Xiaohua opened his mouth again, and a light purple lightning arc quickly rushed out and landed on the devil's heart. The devil looked down at his heart with some disbelief. That place was originally engraved with devil patterns, and ordinary magic treasures couldn't break it. And now, a fist-sized hole had appeared in that supposedly indestructible place. The edges of this hole were still flickering with strands of lightning. Boom! Just at this moment, a low explosive sound came from within the devil's body. The devil's heart was killed by Xiaohua. The devil slightly raised his head, his eyes filled with disbelief and confusion. Then, the black flames were annihilated, and the devil's body fell from the sky. -13. Chapter 4083. Wu. Xiaohua naturally wouldn't let the devil's body fall here. With a sweep of his mind, the devil's corpse was already stored in his space. Taoist Xiao. Seeing Xiaohua easily killing the devil, Yu Mingxian hastily called out from the side. Quickly, this is one of the 9 transfer centers of the ruins. There are many transfer channels converging here. If the devil race occupies this place, not only will many transfer channels be cut off, there will also be many fellow Taoists who will fly like moths to a flame and fall into the devil race's trap. And Xiaohua nodded and replied, the two of you will lead the way for this old man. Wherever this old man needs help, bring this old man there. After that, the two of you will gather the disciples this old man rescued and rise up to resist the devil race. Yes, Yu Mingxian and Yu Changming were very familiar with this transfer center. Hearing Xiaohua's words, they immediately brought Xiaohua to the center of the transfer array. However, before Xiaohua could get close, rumble. The sound of explosions came from the distance of the transfer array. The light of the transfer array was also extremely bright. Soon after, the rumbling sound of the transfer array disappeared. Not good. Yu Mingxian said anxiously, the transfer array was destroyed by the devil race. How are we going to return to the sect? Quickly, Yu Changming urged, Taoist Xiao, let's save the other transfer arrays. After saying that, Yu Changming brought Xiaohua to fly to the nearest transfer array. Xiaohua patted his forehead with one hand and opened his illusion breaker eye. After quickly looking around, he shook his head slightly. These devils are proficient in the Tao of space. They have already started from the transfer channel and destroyed the transfer array from the inside to the outside. We are half a step late. I'm afraid this transfer array will be destroyed. What should we do? Yu Changming was somewhat anxious. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and looked around. After a slight estimation, he said, don't worry. Let's first drive the devil race away. We will slowly repair these transfer arrays. Just as Xiaohua's words landed, a human-shaped devil flew out from the central transmission array and rushed towards Xiaohua not far away. Thin black flames were surging all over this humanoid devilish being's body, making it appear as if it were wearing a set of clothes. Furthermore, this devilish being's facial features were far more pleasing to the eye than the previous devilish being. Aside from the addition of a crimson horn that was over 3 inches long on its forehead, it appeared to be quite similar to an ordinary human being. Before the devil landed, he immediately shouted arrogantly, where did this Taoist cultivator come from? How dare you have designs on this old man? Haha, the demon race has learned the etiquette of our human race? You call yourself an old man? Xiaohua sneered and waved his hands. 2 sword-like thunderbolts appeared out of thin air and pierced towards the chest of the demon. Damn it! The demon cursed in a low voice and released the aura of the demon race from his body. He raised his hand and took out a long spear from who knows where. One of his hands waved the long spear towards Xiaohua, while the other hand waved, and 100 feet long devil fire rushed towards the thunderbolts. Hong long long. The thunderbolts were originally condensed like swords. As soon as they touched the devil fire, the thunderbolts immediately turned into the shape of a horned dragon and rushed towards the devil fire. A huge explosion sounded, and the overwhelming might of the heavens and earth rumbled within 100 feet. The devil fire was instantly extinguished by the thunderbolts. Kong. At the same time, another loud noise sounded. Xiaohua waved his hand, and the wishful steel staff appeared out of thin air and hit the devil spear. In an instant, the devil's spear was sent flying. The devil looked at Xiaohua with some disbelief, as if he had never thought that a human race cultivator could be so fierce. Woo! With a muffled sound, Xiaohua's divine will hammer was born again and smashed towards the devil. The demon was scared out of his wits as he looked at the invisible divine sense that was falling from the sky like a meteor. Crimson red light rushed out of his body, and the horn on his forehead suddenly released a fist-sized light shadow. The light shadow trembled and rushed into the sky like a demon. Every time the light shadow flew an inch, the space collapsed, and blood-red liquid seeped out of the cracks in space. A fishy smell that could corrode everything spread out from the light shadow. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the divine will hammer fell and hit the shadow. The devil was instantly smashed into thousands of fireflies. Under the strong wind, the fireflies had just turned into a smaller devil and had just let out a horrifying smile in the air when they were immediately crushed by the strong wind. What was special was that the divine will hammer didn't slow down after destroying the shadow. It still carried the power of 1,000 caddies and still rushed towards the devil. The devil spread his devil wings and just disappeared into the void. The divine will hammer fell and smashed on one of the devil's wings. Zilala. Like water falling into a pot of oil, the divine will hammer was corroded at the same time, and the devil's wing was also destroyed by the divine will hammer. The devil once again let out a heart-wrenching roar. His whole devil body surged with devil flames and was about to disappear into the void. At this time, a 3-inch-long lightning thread was spat out from Xiaohua's mouth. Shua! The lightning thread flashed and immediately disappeared. Then, the space between Xiaohua and the devil rumbled like a drum. The devil's body that had disappeared appeared again. The devil looked around in disbelief, and his blood-red eyes were filled with fear. Crack! What was even more bizarre was that the devilish body of the devilish being suddenly cracked. Then, as if it was made of glass, the devilish being shattered into pieces. Within the pieces of solidified devilish flames, there were still streaks of lightning flashing like cobwebs. This is a bit strange. Seeing that his lightning technique was so powerful, even Xiaohua was a bit surprised. Although he was now at the Grand Ascension stage and his strength was comparable to that of a tribulation transcending stage cultivator, it was still far beyond Xiaohua's expectations that his lightning technique would be so perfect. After Xiaohua killed this demon general, he finally attracted the attention of the other demon generals. Near the center of the teleportation formation, a series of ghostly wails and howls suddenly sounded. Several demon generals surged with demon chi and joined hands to activate a bloody light. From below the teleportation formation, they surged towards Xiaohua like raging waves. Humph! Xiaohua coldly snorted and slapped the top of his head. Pfff! A burst of 5-colored chi more ferocious than a volcanic eruption rushed into the air. Then, accompanied by an oppressive pressure, it spread in all directions. Rumble! Wherever the 5-colored chi passed, all of the blood-red light was destroyed. All of the devil flames were also extinguished. Even the devil chi around the devil generals was thinned by this unparalleled and overwhelming aura. The originally arrogant devils and the devil chi all shrunk their necks and hid in the devil chi. What? What kind of divine ability is this? Yuming Xin and Yu Changming were already full of admiration for Xiaohua. At this time, when they saw the chi of a refined void stage cultivator, they were even more shocked. In their perception, This chi of a refined void stage cultivator was incomparably firm and sharp. It was the natural enemy of devil chi. Not only that, but when they looked at Xiaohua again, he rubbed his hands again, and several thumb-sized crystal lights fell into the air. Hundreds of fluctuations were generated from his body and quickly rippled out to 1,000 miles away. Rumble. Countless lightning flashed and thunder roared in the void. All of the teleportation formations on the mountain peak were covered by these lightning bolts. An unparalleled mountain pressure was generated around Yu Ming Xian and Yu Changming. The two of them found it difficult to even breathe, let alone use their true essence. Domain. Such a large domain? Yu Ming Xian and Yu Changming didn't know how to hide the shock in their hearts. Boom, boom, boom. One after another, the sound of explosions came from the various teleportation formations. One by one, the weaker devils were killed by Xiaohua's lightning power. At the same time, the equally powerful devils abandoned the human cultivators that were attacking them and appeared from the void. They used their divine abilities to destroy Xiaohua's domain. Kong. Xiaohua slightly raised his hand, and 9 sword chi appeared out of thin air. The sword chi was as strong as the rising sun, and with a wave of Xiaohua's hand, it fell on the 2 devils closest to Xiaohua. One of the 2 devils was holding a devil hammer in his hand, and the other was holding a black short spear. Half of their bodies fell into the void. They seemed to want to escape, but under Xiaohua's domain, neither of them could escape into the void. The 2 devils had no choice but to stimulate their devil chi. Their bodies expanded like black smoke, and at the same time, they faced the flying sword chi. Ka. With a soft sound, the sword chi fell without a trace. The 2 seemingly indestructible devil tools were split in half by the sword chi. Moreover, the sword chi didn't stop. It flew towards a tall devil general several li away. Seeing the sword chi fly half a li away, the devil horns on the 2 devil generals' foreheads emitted a faint blood-red light. Then, a faint blood-red light rushed out of the devil horns, and the devil horns were split in half. At the same time, the bodies of the 2 devil generals were neatly split in half, and they fell from the sky with a loud bang. Ka. Similarly, the devil general several li away wasn't Xiaohua's opponent. When his devil tool was split in half, his body was also split in half. Senior martial brother. Yu Ming Xian's eyes curved into bright moons. She looked at Yu Changming with some pride and whispered, Senior Xiao might be a great expert of the 5th stage of the Dao transformation realm. An outer realm cultivator we casually picked up actually has such a powerful divine ability. Hee, that's right. Yu Changming touched his face and said with a smile, Not long ago, this Dao transformation senior actually stepped on me and apologized to me. My heart is drunk. That's right. Yu Ming Xian agreed. It's rare for Senior Xiao to be so approachable with such a profound cultivation. If he didn't reveal such a method, I would have thought he was just a void refinement realm cultivator. Indeed, Yu Changming prostrated himself in admiration. Senior Zhao's method is brilliant, but the most important thing is his bearing. This is the first time I've seen someone like him. This bearing is like an unattainable mountain, but also like the sun and the spring breeze, making people feel comfortable. I don't know how to describe it. This kind of person is an outstanding person. Even the leader of the Moon Palace can't compare to him, right? Yu Ming Xian's eyes revealed a trace of strangeness. -13. Chapter 4084. While Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming were praising Xiaohua, Xiaohua's sword had already swept through several teleportation arrays and killed dozens of demon generals under his flying sword. At the same time, from these teleportation arrays, hundreds of Dao sect disciples also flew out with difficulty. They looked at Xiaohua with longing as he killed the demon generals like cutting melons and vegetables. Damn it, Mahayana cultivation. No, the strength of the 9th level of essence chi is really not to be trifled with. Xiaohua's hands were a little soft. Although these demon generals had strange figures and could freely travel through the void in front of him, this method was not worth mentioning. If it were not for the fact that he wanted to save the Dao sect disciples in the teleportation arrays, he would be too lazy to kill them. How about I let Lu Yi and the others out to practice? However, just as this thought appeared, he immediately extinguished it. After all, he still did not know what kind of realm the ruins was. The information he got from Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming was far from enough to let him see the true appearance of the ruins. He could not let his disciples take too much risk. Within the space controlled by Xiaohua within 1,000 miles, nearly half of the teleportation arrays had been cleared, and more disciples of the Dao sect were flying out. Boom, boom, boom. More than a dozen explosions were heard near Xiaohua, but at the location of these explosions, more than a dozen demon monarchs that were at least 100 feet in size appeared with sinister smiles on their faces. These dozens of demon monarchs had strange fluctuations around their bodies, and the entire space trembled with these fluctuations, resisting the power of Xiaohua's domain. Moreover, although these dozens of demon monarchs had huge figures, except for the faint demon runes around their bodies, they did not look any different from humans. Some of them even looked quite handsome. I wanted to lure a few void refining brats to have a taste, who knew that it would actually attract an elder of the three sects. One of the demon monarchs tore Xiaohua's domain with his hand and looked at Xiaohua's flying sword with a smile. Look at the sharpness of this flying sword. If this demon monarch is not wrong, this should be the Taibai sect's flying sword technique. The other demon monarch nodded and said, the true qi that killed the demon general was similar to the Xiantian true qi of the Taibai sect. This human must be an elder of the Shundao sect. This matter is a little troublesome. The demon monarch, who was the furthest away from Xiaohua, held a huge magic wand in his hand and stepped on a demonic beast. However, he shook his head and said, the Shundao sect's elder is too ruthless. His cultivation level should be above the 3rd stage Dao transformation realm. We might not be his match. Now that things have come to this, do we still have a choice? A demon general sneered. The demon horn on his forehead turned blood red. At the same time, he opened his mouth and a river of demon water gushed out. This demonic water did not directly rush towards Xiaohua. Instead, it spread towards the other demon generals. Indeed, the demon monarch, who was the first to speak, nodded. Being able to kill an elder of the Shundao sect is also a great contribution to us. When the time comes, the demon emperor will definitely reward us. Even if we can't kill him, he definitely won't be able to stop us from escaping. Such a good thing. Why not? Kill him. The demon monarchs seemed to ignore Xiaohua's invincible methods. After a short discussion, they spoke in unison. Rivers of blood gushed out, and the demon monarchs also disrupted Xiaohua's domain. Then, layers of spatial ripples rose up within 1,000 miles. Under the gaze of Yu Mingxin and the other Dao sect cultivators, Xiaohua, the demon monarchs, and the demon generals who hurriedly flew out of the teleportation array disappeared into the void. Not good. Yu Mingxin saw this, and his expression changed greatly. He said in alarm, this is the demon race's spatial teleportation technique. Senior Xiao is a human. In this space, he definitely won't be able to withstand the demon race's innate divine ability. Senior martial brother, Yes. How can we help Senior Xiao? Yu Changming was also at his wit's end. Following Xiaohua's disappearance, the domain that enveloped the entire space also disappeared. The Dao sect cultivators were all able to move. They were all overjoyed to see that they had escaped from death's door. The ones who disappeared before were all powerful demons. Now, although there were still some demon generals and demon soldiers killing humans in these teleportation arrays, these demons were no longer a threat. Some Dao sect cultivators organized themselves and headed towards these teleportation arrays to kill the demons. At the same time, some cultivators flew into the sky. Senior martial brother Yu. Several fragrance cult disciples called out. Who was that senior just now? This little brother doesn't seem to have seen him in the sect before. Senior martial brothers? Yu Mingxin shouted. This senior is called Xiaohua, Taoist Master Xiao. He is an outer realm cultivator. Because the demon race besieged our ruins, he mistakenly entered the ruins during the teleportation process. He doesn't know much about the demon race. Now, he even fell into the demon race's void demon formation. We have to quickly think of a way. Ah, isn't Taoist Master Xiao a senior of our white sect? A disciple of the godly knife school flew in the air and shouted, "That old man's flying sword looks very similar to our Tai by school's heaven-shocking sword. It doesn't matter whether he is a senior of the white sect or not." Yu Mingxin said unhappily, "Right now, we have to help Taoist Master Xiao get out of the demon formation. Those are 18 demon monarchs. Even if he is a senior of the white sect, it is inevitable that he will suffer losses in there." The Shindao sect disciple stopped there awkwardly. He bit his lips and frowned. Then, he said in a low voice, But that demon formation was set up by more than 10 demon monarchs. How can we help Taoist Master Xiao? Is there a disciple of the Misty School here? Yu Mingxin suddenly thought of something and hurriedly called out, "I am from the Misty School." A handsome male disciple in the distance hurriedly raised his hand and answered, "Junior Martial Sister." Yu Changming seemed to have thought of something and said in surprise, "You? What are you going to do?" "Of course, I am going to ask the Moon Beast to help us." Yu Mingxin answered calmly, her eyes filled with determination. Are you crazy?" Yu Changming said anxiously, "If it were any other time, we would have asked the Moon Beast to come down to the mortal world. But now, the demon race has joined forces to seal the area around the ancient ruins. Let alone 10 years, even 100 years is not enough to break this seal. Also, if the Moon Beast is useful, the sect leaders would have asked it to come down to the mortal world. Why would they fight so hard against the demon race?" "Of course, I am not crazy," Yu Mingxin said with a smile. "My life was saved by Taoist Master Xiao. How can I watch Taoist Master Xiao get trapped by the demon monarchs? I don't know if the Moon Beast is useful or not, but this is the only thing I can do for Taoist Master Xiao." Then, Yu Mingxin turned around and looked at the disciples of various sects who were rushing toward them. She said anxiously, "Taoist Master Xiao killed a group of demon generals and saved us. How can we be so ungrateful and not save our benefactor when he is in a sea of fire? Senior martial brothers, I don't need you to waste your lifespan. I only need you to take out some of your blood essence and offer it to the Moon Beast. I will provide all the lifespan essence." "Okay." A few Dao sect disciples who were excited shouted, "Junior Martial Sister Yu is the first to bear the brunt. If you do not have enough lifespan essence, you can retreat. We are willing to sacrifice 10 years of our lifespan for Taoist Master Xiao." "Okay, if that's the case, we will sacrifice the Moon Beast immediately." Yu Mingxin was overjoyed when she saw this. She knelt down in midair and recited the incantation. A devout power of vow was emitted from her body. At the same time, the rest of the disciples held their Dharma treasures and stood guard around them. Some of them knelt down in midair as well. There were thousands of them. Everyone was reciting the incantation. Streams of power of vow rushed up to the sky and gathered together. However, although the power of vow was rolling around in midair, it did not rush up to the sky. After a few minutes, Yu Mingxin's face was filled with sincerity. She recited, "Moon Beast, O Moon Beast, I, Yu Mingxin, am praying in the lower realm. Please save Taoist Master Xiao Hua, Xiao Junren, from the hands of the demon clan. I am willing to sacrifice 10 years of my life to Lord Moon Beast." As she was speaking, Yu Mingxin opened her mouth and a drop of blood essence fell into midair. Then, Yu Mingxin raised her hand and a faint golden light appeared on her index finger. As Yu Mingxin drew a strange rune in midair, the blood essence vibrated slowly. Waves of energy rushed into the power of vow in midair. Quick! After a while, Yu Mingxin raised her hand and touched the blood essence. Puff! An even stronger wave came out from the blood essence and rushed up to the sky like a flying sword. Pa! With a light sound, Yu Mingxin turned her hand and the blood essence fell between her eyebrows. Wong! Yu Mingxin's body suddenly let out a rumbling sound similar to that of a Dharma treasure. 10 waves of energy rushed out from between her eyebrows together with the rumbling sound. The waves fell into the power of vow from before. The power of vow turned into a beast shape and rushed up to the sky. However, the beast shape only rushed out for 100 miles before it was blocked by a huge restriction. It could not rise any higher. Even the faint outline of the moon in the sky did not have any reaction. Yu Mingxin narrowed her eyes. Without hesitation, she spat out another mouthful of blood essence and cast the spell again. Thousands of Dao sect disciples were also reciting the incantation. An even stronger power of vow rushed out. The ruins had been surrounded by the devil race for a long time. Yu Mingxin was only a god refinement cultivator. Even if she used her life essence to cast the secret technique of the cultivation world, it was impossible for her to break through the devil race's formation. After 10 times, wrinkles appeared on Yu Mingxin's face. The power of vow from the blood essence only rushed up to a few hundred miles in the sky. Although Yu Mingxin could not see the power of vow, she could clearly feel that there was an iron wall in the sky that blocked her power of vow. Lord Moon Beast. Yu Mingxin raised her hand and poked her finger into her heart. Hot blood gushed out, junior sister. Yu Changming was so distressed that he almost cried. He knew that this poke might not be able to take Yu Mingxin's life. However, Yu Mingxin would lose more than just her lifespan. As expected, after hot blood gushed out, Yu Mingxin cast the secret technique of sacrifice again. Yu Mingxin's face quickly withered, and her hair turned white instantly. Yu Mingxin wailed, Lord Moon Beast, I am willing to sacrifice my life to invite Lord Moon Beast to come to the mortal world. Spiritual Master Shao, please save my life. I am willing to exchange my life for yours. -13. Chapter 4085. Following Yu Ming Xian's words, the outline of the bright moon in the sky suddenly became clear. An indescribable fluctuation transcended the distance of space and suddenly fell into the power of hope of thousands of disciples. Whoosh! Like a golden dragon breaking through the chains, Yu Ming Xian's essence blood rushed into the sky along with a large amount of power of hope, breaking through the sky at the place where the fluctuation fell. Woo-woo. In just a few breaths, the place where the Moon Palace's fluctuation fell, the space began to distort intensely. An extremely vast and sacred aura poured out from the crack in space. Yu Ming Xian's wrinkled face was filled with ecstasy. The other disciples were also ecstatic and devoutly knelt down again. As for Xiaohua, he saw the bloody space mixed with the strange fluctuation quickly enveloping him. Moreover, a kind of spatial force was born from the fluctuation, as if a dozen forces were dragging him into the void. Although Xiaohua had the ability to resist this force, looking at the vague smile of the demon monarch behind the bloody mist, Xiaohua sneered even more. He simply gave up resisting, and his figure disappeared into the void along with the fluctuation. Xiaohua had just returned from the void. Why would he be afraid of fighting the demon race in the void? When Xiaohua's figure landed, he took a closer look. This void was different from the previous void. It was suffused with a strange blood-red color. Xiaohua scanned it with his divine sense and immediately understood that this was a void boundary similar to the one in the blood-drop paradise. The blood-red fog rapidly corroded Xiaohua's divine sense. However, Xiaohua's divine sense was as tough as steel. The moment it came into contact with the blood-red fog, it immediately retreated. The blood-red space did not affect his divine sense at all. Haha! Several wild laughter came from the edge of the bloody space. The 6 demon monarchs in the shape of 6 stars revealed their demon bodies amidst their laughter. The demon monarchs' demon bodies were several hundred zhang in size, and the black flames and bloody light on them condensed into strange demon patterns. Each demon pattern was like a small world, and inside it was filled with roars, blood, hatred, and other negative emotions. Xiaohua was not in a hurry to attack. He only released his domain to protect himself within 100 zhang. He calmly looked at the numerous demon monarchs and secretly laughed in his heart. Damn, these demon monarchs are really different from the demon generals I saw in the Dawn Rain continent. Moreover, this demon race's technique is also higher level than the blood drop paradise. My devil body has already completed the blood drop grotto heaven, and there are no other techniques for further cultivation. Now that I have come here by chance, although I have yet to figure out what kind of world the ruins is in, this technique is the real deal. There are more than 10 demon monarchs in the void, and other demon generals. They should have techniques of the demon race, right? This Xiao only needs one technique, even if this Xiao can't cultivate this technique. When I see second senior brother in the future, he can still use it. Haha, these stupid pigs. How could the demon monarch, who was despised by Xiao Hua as a stupid pig, know of Xiao Hua's wishful thinking? Seeing Xiao Hua standing there in a daze, he couldn't help but laugh out loud again and shouted, "Ha ha ha, you human, obediently become this demon monarch's blood food. If this demon monarch is happy, I can even release your soul and let you fall into the netherworld to start anew. Otherwise, I will let you be like those wandering souls, unable to reincarnate for thousands of years." While speaking, that demon monarch seemed to be demonstrating his power. He waved his hand in the air, and a pitch-black banner was taken out. On the banner, numerous blood lights surged, and countless wandering souls were shouting. There was even a soul that was emitting golden light that was about to fly out from the banner. Damn it! The devil monarch was unable to control the devil banner and spat out a mouthful of devil blood onto the golden soul. Oh! The golden soul roared as it covered its head and rolled around in the air. Devil Chi flew out from the banner and pulled the soul into it. In just a few breaths of time, wong wong wong, the sound of an army galloping could be heard. That golden soul turned into a valiant general riding on a jet-black demonic beast. It stepped out of the void, and the halberd in the soul's hand gave off an indescribable fluctuation. It actually made Xiao Hua's hair stand on end. How can you make the first move? Another demon monarch beside the demon monarch was anxious. Didn't we agree to attack together? As he spoke, the devil monarch hastily raised his hand and clapped. A pitch-black brilliance frantically flew out from the top of his head. That brilliance transformed into an image that was exactly the same as the devil monarch in midair. His hand was actually holding a devil sword like a Dao sect cultivator, and he stabbed it towards Xiao Hua. In this blood-colored space, under the thrust of the demon sword, the previous violent wave immediately fell in front of Xiao Hua's domain in a few breaths. Haha! Xiao Hua laughed and patted his head. Demon brothers, don't be anxious. Come one by one. This little one has a considerate service here that will satisfy you. Boom! But at the top of Xiao Hua's head, a 9-colored Buddhist light gushed out, and Buddha Bodhi's 8-foot golden body appeared along with the Buddhist light. The moment Bodhi appeared, the Buddhist light immediately tore the blood-colored space to a size of 100 zhang. Wherever the Buddhist light went, all the blood color disappeared, and all the space collapsed. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Bodhi chanted the name of Buddha and said, "Before Buddha, a seed of karma. Today it bears fruit. The Sarira is the spirit, and Bodhi has achieved the golden body." As Bodhi's voice fell, his hands formed a Buddhist seal, and the power of mountains, like a heavenly dragon roaring, rushed towards the demon monarch's sword light, and the power of karma, like a sea of blood, rushed towards the demon banner's soul. This is the Buddha Kingdom golden body. The two demon monarchs were shocked. How could he appear here? However, after being surprised, extreme greed appeared in the eyes of the two demon monarchs. One of the demon monarchs shouted, "Everyone, this Buddha Kingdom golden body belongs to us. No one can snatch it from us." While speaking, the two demon monarchs not only activated their demon weapons, but also stepped on demon flames and personally rushed over, as if this Bodhi was a great tonic. Damn it! The third demon monarch shouted, "Why didn't I make the first move? Haha, then I'll take this human elder as my food." Following this demon monarch's roar, another demon monarch beside him also shouted, "How can you be his opponent? I'll help you. We'll share it together." Roar! The third demon monarch stepped on a demon beast that was at least 1,000 zhang long. The demon beast spat out demon flames from its mouth, and on its wings, there were thousands of zhang of demon flames that rushed towards Xiao Hua. The fourth demon monarch waved his hand, and tens of thousands of tentacles quickly spread in the blood-colored space, attacking Xiao Hua faster than the demon flames. Didn't this Xiao say? One by one. Not a single one will be left out. Xiao Hua smiled proudly, but he didn't activate his divine ability. Instead, he flipped his palm and landed on the top of his head. Boom! Another five-colored light gushed out, and a Xiaohua wearing a scholar's robe rushed out while stepping on a five-colored, auspicious cloud with his hands behind his back. The scholar cultivator Xiaohua landed in the air, and the aura surging around him was also the nemesis of the demon Qi. Wherever the multicolored light and auspicious cloud touched, the blood-colored space melted, and waves of whales came out from the blood-colored space. Thousands of demons were killed by this multicolored light. The scholar cultivator Xiaohua sang, 5 Qis unifying as my earth, 3 flowers gathering as my sky, Xiantian true Qi as my body, civil star lord as my name. As the scholar cultivator Xiaohua waved his hand, 2 sword lights soared into the sky, respectively tearing the blood-colored space apart, and rushed towards the 2 demon monarchs fiercely rushing towards him. The 5th demon monarch looked at the 6th demon monarch, who was also surprised, and said with some disbelief, "This human cultivator. How many primordial spirits did he cultivate? Could it be that he has already surpassed the Tao transformation realm of the cultivation world? How is that possible?" The 6th demon monarch sneered. If he had surpassed the Tao transformation realm, he would have already entered the Moon Palace. Why would he need to suffer here? Damn it, everyone, take your time. I want to see how many primordial spirits this little Shandao sect elder has cultivated. While speaking, the 2 demon monarchs also activated their divine abilities. One transformed into a 1,000-feet-tall demon and rushed down, while the other's demon body disappeared and turned into hundreds of millions of demons, rushing towards Xiaohua like a flood. That's all. Xiaohua was extremely calm, and once again patted his head. Boom! A pure dragon Qi soared into the sky, and a 5-clawed golden dragon with supreme, auspicious light surging around it flew out. As soon as the 5-clawed golden dragon appeared, streams of dragon Qi formed a jade necklace. Although the jade necklace's light was not as bright as the Buddhist light and innate true Qi, it still destroyed most of the blood-colored space. Roar! The 5-clawed golden dragon let out a dragon roar and similarly sang, 100 million years of fate formed my soul. A dragon pool cast my body. The primordial world condensed my soul, and the dragon vein formed my name. The dragon's body swayed, and in the blood-colored space, it turned into thousands of feet long, and pounced towards the 2 demon monarchs who were already close to it. The blood-colored space was already on the verge of collapse. Under the Buddhist light, Bodhi activated his psyche power and fought evenly with the 2 demon monarchs. In the 5-colored true Qi, of course, Wen Chu was not to be outdone. His 2 flying swords were like swimming dragons, dealing with the 2 demon monarchs with ease. Relying on his physical body and chanting the heavenly dragon language technique, he gradually suppressed the 2 demon monarchs. Xiaohua chuckled and said, "Demon brothers, do you have any other tricks?" Buzz. The surrounding space trembled, and dozens of blood-colored lights surged out again, reinforcing the space. The remaining 12 demon monarchs appeared with indescribable expressions. They looked at the 3 fighting groups, then looked at the complacent Xiaohua, and exchanged glances with each other. Then, another 2 demon monarchs stepped on their demonic beasts and rushed out, as if they wanted to see what tricks Xiaohua had up his sleeves. Haha! Xiaohua did not hesitate to pat his palm again. Under the horrified gazes of the demon monarchs, the formless Yuanying stepped on a thunderbolt and appeared in front of the demon monarchs. The formless nascent soul was originally formless, but it was able to reveal itself in the void. It was only 3 feet tall and was surrounded by lightning. As soon as it landed in the blood-red space, the surrounding space was pulverized by a series of thunderbolts. A gentle voice came from its mouth. "Thunderbolts are my name. Thunderbolts are my weapons. Thunderbolts are my actions. And heavenly retribution is my fate." -13.